All right, good evening, everybody. This is Tech Thursdays, the weekly live show that I host. This is episode 168. We're going to be talking about mobile chips this time. Last week we talked about desktop. This week we're going to be focusing on mobile. It's been probably 2 or 3 months since we last, well, actually might be even longer than that now that I think about it. Yeah, actually it might have been more like 9 or 10 months since we focus on mobile. I did focus quite a bit on mobile earlier this year from the Framework Laptop 16. We're going to be talking about Framework in a little bit later in the show because there is a new laptop that they released this month, which maybe it was last month, but we'll talk about it regardless. And then there's also a lot of changes with hardware, like DDR4 is more expensive now. Not nearly as bad as DDR5, and last week we did definitely look at DDR5 pricing. We'll probably do that again next month just to see if the prices have gone up even more, like those news articles proposed that they would go up based off of those analysts' reports. But DDR4 is becoming more expensive, and I can see in the chat, yeah, Amazon HP are selling laptops with the old DDR4, yeah. So that's kind of a thing now. Like last generation hardware or last generation hardware is the new thing now for consumers because apparently consumers aren't supposed to be using DDR5. That's only supposed to be for data centers and AI. And that's rapidly becoming a true statement. So anyway, how are you guys doing this week? So like I said, this week we're going to be focusing on mobile. We'll talk about gaming later in the stream. We tend to do that toward the end because I know some people pay attention to my gaming content, although that isn't really the primary focus of Tech Thursdays. As the name of the show implies, we focus on all things tech related, whether that's building a computer for gaming, building a computer for a home lab, building a home server, building a NAS, building a workstation or a high-end desktop like a Threadripper system. We cover all of the above on this channel, so if you like any of the things that I just talked about or are interested in that as a hobby, do tune into the show. That's all I'm going to say. So the first thing I want to point out is this kind of like caught my eye out of the blue. So we're not going to spend too much time on talking about GPUs this stream, but this just came out of nowhere. So the fastest GPU for a consumer right now, this is the fastest gaming GPU. This is the RTX Pro 6000. Blackwell edition, 96 gigabytes of GDDR7. It now costs almost double its original price, $16,000. It's weird because we did that whole segment on DDR5 pricing last week on episode 167, and now GPU pricing is getting out of control. Well, not quite there yet, but it is going up. So this GPU, the MSRP is around $8,500 for reference. So $16,000 is definitely about double the price. And that just kind of goes to show that things are getting out of control. I've seen so many random memes about like AI data centers and memory and like the consumer purchasing power going way down. We've talked a lot about this on a couple of episodes over the last month or two. So yeah, it looks like if you want to order this from NVIDIA's website, they have, when NVIDIA raises the website, is this NVIDIA's website? It looks like NVIDIA's website. Yeah, when they raise the website, or when they raise the price themselves, that signals to retailers, hey, we need to make the prices even higher than NVIDIA because we are selling with convenience. So this is not good, man. Like, whoa, and look, even the PNY RTX Pro 6000, the PNY edition at $11,359.99 is out of stock. So people are still buying these things in large quantities for them to actually be going out of stock, despite these ridiculous prices. So it's one of those things where I feel like the PC hobby, like the hobby of building your own desktop computer, it feels like this hobby is diminishing. Month by month, it is diminishing. And we haven't looked at pre-builds in a while, so I don't know how pre-build pricing compares. We are going to look at laptop pricing later on, because if you're in the market for a laptop, I'm kind of curious to know what happened with laptops. Because the back to school and the holiday season, basically the second half of the year, is usually the time of the year when you can get a good deal on a laptop. So that's why we're going to focus on that a little bit, even though probably more like October, November timeframe is when the laptops are really going to be taken off. We're going to try to stay ahead of that curve and look at it for people who are considering upgrading their laptop. Just kind of see what to expect, because I had somebody ask me earlier this week. They asked me what's a good price for a laptop, for a good laptop nowadays. And I said, without really thinking too much, I just kind of assumed based off of where everything is. I kind of said like starting around $1,500 probably. That'll be like the floor for a decent laptop. I mean, that's kind of how it was last year. We'll see. I mean, I got a really good deal last fall during Black Friday. I think it was like the week before Black Friday. It was definitely in November. There's YouTube videos on the channel if you want to look it up. It was an HP Omen Max gamer laptop with an RTX 5080 laptop GPU and 32 gigabytes of DDR5. And I got that laptop for like $1,600. $1,600. 16-inch, 2560 by 1600, 165 hertz refresh laptop screen, laptop 5080 in that AMD Ryzen AI, not so your Copilot Plus and all your AI LLMs run locally, and it was upgradable, SODIMM, dual M.2, 1600, or maybe it was 1700. I think there's a tax in there, so it was like $1,700 for that laptop, gamer laptop. That was the deal of 2026 for a gamer laptop. So since then, I don't think there's anything that comes close to that. $1,600, RTX 5080 dual NVMe, upgradable DDR5 SODIMM, 16-inch one. You can't really beat that. So yeah, we'll take a look at laptops though, because I'm pretty curious to know like what happens.
Bought a 5090 laptop last month at around $3,000, 2025 model. Performance is around the same as a real 5070 but with 24 gigabytes VRAM and 64 gigabytes DDR5. Not a bad deal in this market.
$3,000 for a laptop with 64 gigabytes of DDR5 with a 5090, and it is very impressive. Yeah, that's very impressive. That might actually be the deal of this year. I don't know. Well, I don't know, because I don't know what the pricing for like a 5070 laptop would be. But we'll look at that later in the stream. But yeah, man, that's a really good deal. $3,000, 5090 laptop plus, because that's 24 gigs of VRAM in a laptop GPU. So that's really good. And then you said 64 gig. I don't know. You bought that a month ago and it had 64 gigs of RAM? Did you buy that secondhand? You said it's last year's model. So was that used? Was that refurb? That seems like a really good deal. I assume it's like refurb last year model? Or what they call open box or something? From B&H? From B&H? What? What? Wow. Oh, the new ones just came out. Oh, so it was like a clearance one. Okay. Yeah, I remember I almost did something like that back in, I forget what year. Was it 2024? I almost did that like 2 years ago, but I ended up not doing it, and I ended up waiting another year. But I almost did something similar because I think they were getting rid of it must have been earlier last year because they were getting rid of the RTX 40 series laptops. So it was one of those RTX 40 series laptops that was discounted or something like that. It was something around that. I forget. I think it was like an Asus laptop, but I ended up not getting it. And then I ended up getting the HP Omen Max for like $1,600-$1,700 with the 5080 laptop GPU and 32 gig. I mean, there's like 2 or 3 videos on the channel. We did a live stream, gaming stream, whatever, using that laptop to game and stream at the same time. And then I also did like an overview, a review, and an unboxing. So there's a couple of videos. If you look back around November, or I want to say it was like November or maybe early December of last year, you'll find those videos on this channel. But yeah, RTX Pro 6000, fastest gaming GPU. They're claiming Workstation Edition, but you know, there's the Max Q. Anyone who's really going to get this for a workstation are going to be buying the Max Q. Max Q is the way to go because they're going to stack multiple cards. They're going to run like two, anywhere from 1 to 4 cards. You can't run 4 of the Workstation Edition in a workstation just because there's not enough room, and also there's not enough heat. There's not enough heat dissipation capability for the actual chassis. Whereas with the blower style, you can scale up to 4 cards. Plus, I think the blower style is 300 watt TDP. That's why it's Max Q. So the VBIOS on it has a different power limit versus the 600 watt TDP on the Workstation Edition. So, like, if I was in the market for one of these, now obviously I'm never going to buy one of these at $16,000, but I'm just saying, like, let's say I was an AI company or an AI startup company or whatever. If I was going to buy something like this, I would definitely be buying the Max Q, not the Workstation. Because the Workstation one is for like I feel like it's for like a dev station that's only going to do like some random prompt processing tests or something for scalability testing. Whereas the Workstation Edition, I'm not the Workstation, the Max Q, the blower style one over here on the right, like this is the one that I think a lot of people actually want if you're going to put this into a cluster because it's far more reliable. They don't have to worry about the stupid 12 volt. It uses the 12 volt cable, but the dumb cable is not going to melt on them, or they don't have to worry about it because it's 300 watt TDP full load versus like 600 watts on the other one. So even though the other one looks nicer, the Max Q one is actually the real deal. So, because I've talked to multiple sources. I've talked to like Micro Center salespeople that have sold these cards to businesses, and they all tell me, like Micro Center's telling me that the Max Q is in higher demand than the Workstation one, with like the gamer style fans. And the Max Q one is the one that's almost always out of stock, because people, when they want to buy the Max Q, rarely are they buying one card. They're trying to buy the limit of 2 per company or whatever, like whatever the limit is on the purchase amount. So it's the Max Q is the one that's actually selling in large quantities. So PNY is the exclusive dealer for these RTX Pro 6000 Blackwell workstation and Max Q workstation edition. So they're the ones that are making like a lot off of this. So yeah, that just kind of stuck out to me. So let's look at what else. There was a couple of things I wanted to talk about on here. So yeah, there was one. So UBS expects AMD to strike a foundry deal with Intel. This is very interesting, and I kind of always assume that something like this might become real in a couple of years once Intel's foundry gets on track, mainly because TSMC right now is like the thing, and we need more competitive sources to keep TSMC in check, because I mean, look at what's happened with foundry prices in the last 5 years, because TSMC has kind of had a quasi monopoly on the industry, because the other competitors, Intel, Global Foundries, Samsung, they haven't really been that competitive. Like they're always like vying for like second, third, and fourth place, where TSMC has continuously been first place for many, many years now in terms of how much of an advantage they have over the others. So this makes sense. Like I'm not surprised to see this AMD like it's expecting. So it's not a done deal, but they expect AMD to strike a foundry deal with Intel. So can you imagine a imagine for instance a Ryzen CPU that it's an AMD branded CPU, but it's manufactured from Intel's foundries. So it'll be like a Intel Inside Ryzen Zen 7 or Zen 8 or whatever type of thing. That would be kind of interesting. As it faces perennial underdog status on data center racks. So AMD appears destined for a perennial underdog status on data center racks. It might have to tap its arch nemesis Intel to maintain momentum. So the reason why this is something that's interesting. This is very interesting actually. So we've talked about this before. One of the reasons why, this is not the only reason, but one of the reasons why the AMD Advantage laptops, I don't know how many of you guys remember the AMD Advantage laptop branding. Basically a Ryzen mobile CPU plus a Radeon mobile GPU. So you have an AMD plus AMD gamer laptop. Those things kind of fizzled out and disappeared from society in the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years now. I mean, I think the Framework Laptop 16 that I have is like the last AMD Advantage laptop to exist. And even then, the newest iteration of that laptop features the RTX 5070 laptop GPU. So yeah, AMD Advantage laptops are all but extinct at this point. But one of the reasons why they're extinct, well, there's two primary reasons that I can think of. Number one, obviously, because a lot of gamers just buy GeForce. They just buy GeForce. So that's like the number one reason. But the other reason that no one really talks about is because AMD is hindered by the ongoing capacity constraints at TSMC. So think about it like this. If you're AMD and TSMC, like you tell TSMC, hey, I need to order 200,000 wafers. And TSMC's like, over what amount of time? And AMD's like, over like the next 6 months. And then TSMC's like, I can't do that. I can give you maybe 80,000 wafers in the next quarter, and I can give you another 20 to 40,000 in the quarter after that. So that's like 120 to 140,000 wafers. So if they tell AMD like this, so what is AMD going to do? They're going to be like, okay, so we have to prioritize which chips get made from the wafers and which ones don't get made. And obviously you go look at what brings in the money. Well, obviously the Epic data center CPUs for the servers, for all those AI boys, like all that stuff is going to be like priority number one. And then after that, you have all of your consumer stuff. So you have your X3D gamers, you have your mobile chips, you have, basically all the Ryzen stuff. And then you have the graphics. So then they're going to prioritize the projected sales for the AI GPUs. So the really big stuff, like the stuff that's going to go in Helios, that's coming out soon. So those things are going to get priority. And those things are also very large dies. Like those are very, very big. So you can only manufacture so many of those before you run out of space on a given wafer. So they have to prioritize these things. So what ends up not getting made? Well, the things that people are less interested in purchasing, and that's going to be the Radeon mobile chips. So, and then you got to spend R&D on the mobile chip for the AMD Advantage. Now, it's not that I don't think they're cutting funding for like Radeon on mobile. That wouldn't make any sense, especially considering how you use GPUs for on-prem local AI. So obviously you would want good integrated chips that can do AI efficiently, so you're perf per watt. So there's definitely a reason to invest in that area. So it's not like they've just completely given up on Radeon on mobile. It's just they can't afford to build it because they only have a certain number of wafers from TSMC. So the other things that make more money get higher priority. That's just how it works. So this article taps into that whole hindered by the capacity constraints of TSMC. So AMD will strike up a foundry deal with its arch nemesis Intel, as per the latest commentary from analysts over at UBS. This is interesting because this is one way they can sidestep being supply constrained, and they can basically scale up. It's like, okay, well, if we can get like 50,000 wafers from Intel, we can start manufacturing, maybe they'll manufacture the mobile stuff on Intel's foundry, or maybe they'll manufacture the GPUs on Intel's foundry, or whatever. Like, it could be whatever makes sense, right? Whatever Intel's foundry is good at, they'll go with that if they can. So this is really good for both AMD and Intel. It's kind of a weird thing because it's like you're having your competitor make your chips that you directly compete against their own chips. So it's one of those weird things. But at the end of the day, like from Intel's perspective, it's like this is going to help prop up the foundry business because now they have AMD as a customer effectively. So, yeah, I think it's kind of a win-win if this actually happens, because then AMD can actually start scaling up and actually making more chips for a broader range of different things, like different segments. They don't have to pick and choose their battles. They can now basically they can address all the markets. So I think that's good for them, and that's good for Intel for obvious reasons, because Intel's foundry business has been struggling for many, many years now. So it does seem like Intel is turning around if companies like AMD are considering them as a potential foundry. Because the thing is, you would think like AMD could go to Samsung, AMD could go back to Global Foundries. If Global Foundries and Samsung are good, there's no reason why they wouldn't go with them or consider them either. So it's kind of strange. Like the fact that they're approaching Intel with this idea kind of indicates that Intel's foundries are really good now. All right. So here's another hardware article before we start talking about like mobile chips and stuff. So Intel's CEO hints Chipzilla's return to making memory. Yeah, Intel, I don't know how many of you guys remember, Intel used to make memory. They used to make their own DRAM. They used to make SRAM like way back in the day. So that's actually how they really got started. They kind of shifted to CPU once CPU became way more profitable than DRAM, and they just kind of got out of the DRAM business. But it's funny, it's like, oh, they turned away the memory business because they felt like it wouldn't make them any money. But now look what happened. Like, so new memory architecture with 3D stacking to tackle the DRAM wall. Intel has hinted at a return to the memory segment as the CEO, Lip-Bu, says that memory is no longer a commodity business and holds tremendous innovation potential. So Intel's previous venture in the memory space was its Optane products, which were based on... Yeah, that's right. They had those Optane SSDs that you could get. Optane memory, Optane storage, non-volatile non-volatile storage. Yeah, so they did the Optane memory for for the data center, which was really good. And then they had like those Optane SSDs that I remember. So they did hire the ex-CEO of SK Hynix has joined Intel, Seok-hee Lee, as EVP of the foundry business and advanced packaging technologies. This company has been making inroads in the memory segment silently with its partners, with upcoming technologies such as XBM and ZAM currently in the works. So they've got their Z angle memory that I think we talked about this like 2 or 3 years ago. Intel's past attempts at DRAM, such as Hybrid Memory Cube and MC-DRAM, faced various issues and never came to market. But with XBM, Intel is course correcting its DRAM ambitions, and along with ZAM, the company may once again see a return to the DRAM segment. And this comes at a time when the entire memory segment is facing heightened shortages. Hold on, is this one of those? Yeah, we're gonna look at this one. Memory is just hilarious to talk about these days. I mean, it's not hilarious if you're someone who needs to buy memory, but it is hilarious for anyone who is watching this from the sidelines and doesn't need to buy any memory. Because this is a long winter. We are in for a long winter. I was thinking about the GPU crisis of 2021 and how it lasted like 18 months. 18 months. If we don't see the price of DRAM flatline around next spring, then we are going to be in for some serious problems for the next 2 years. But if it flatlines like almost a year from now, then there's a chance that it could slowly go down a little bit over the next 36 months from a year from now. So that's like 48 months from now in terms of like we'll see price stabilization. So it is a long winter. This is the fallout winter that we are in for the DRAM apocalypse, as they've been calling it. So let's see what he says here. He said, well, the first of all, we are very excited, in the agentic AI and inference CPU is huge demand. So my day is a lot of CEO call. I want to have more CPU from you. So we truly try the CPU, make sure that we meet them. And secondly, some of the new architecture of CPU so that we can meet some of the requirement. And then secondly, I think the CPU and memory, I think there's a lot of way we can really do stacking together and also try to find some new architecture from memory. And I think in some way the memory, a lot of innovation are not there, so there's some really good area. I used to be, don't invest in memory because it's kind of commodity business, right? But now become different. There's a lot of new technology come out, so we are kind of looking at. One of my pet project is looking some of the memory, new architecture, and I think you just saw the news. I hired my good friend Seok-hee Lee. He used to run SK Hynix, right? So you kind of know something that I'm thinking about. We are not ready to unfold it, but I always have something thinking about what is the short-term, mid-term, long-term requirement. So that was from the Intel CEO, Lip Bhutan. I gotta admit, since Pat Gelsinger left, since Lip-Bu took over, we have seen some significant changes at Intel. So this is another good example of some massive, unexpected change. Intel's going back into DRAM, potentially, according to this article. Like right now, all the stuff that Intel has regarding DRAM is all R&D. So they're investing internally in R&D. So remember how Intel laid off all those people? They probably hired back a couple of those people, but they have them doing like DRAM research and development and stuff. So they're trying to restructure the expertise in different areas to try to basically discover new business opportunities. And the DRAM thing is obviously a good choice because, I've been saying this for a while. The only way we're going to get out of this memory winter, the DRAM winter, that could last until at least the end of the decade, is if Chinese memory starts going good, like we get the green light on like Chinese memory to be sold like globally, that could potentially help fix the problem. But I don't know if that's going to happen. The Chinese domestic market, yes, but the global market, that remains to be seen. So we do need something like, okay, Intel or whoever, go and create some new DRAM thing, but that's going to take time. It's not like, hey, we hired the ex CEO of SK Hynix, so we're going to start selling DRAM next year. No, that's not how it works. It's going to take them like 4 years, minimum 4 to 5 years, to actually decide to put something on the market. So by the time, like, that's the thing, like by the time they have something, maybe the DRAM problem will have slowly evaporated. Who knows? There's a lot of unknowns in this area. But if we don't see price stabilization of DDR5 by next spring or around next spring, we'll have serious problems. Serious problems. For those of you that want to build a new PC, and you, or like, okay, here's the other thing too, like DDR6, 2028, DDR6. You heard it here first. So, how is this problem going to affect DDR6? That's the other thing too. Just keep that in mind. If you think DDR5 is expensive, you haven't seen anything yet. So anyway, so it's funny because I think about like Jensen when he announced the RTX 50 series, CES of last year. I can't believe it's been like a year and a half since that time, man. When he did that, he would say, "Oh, you gamers and your $10,000 PCs." And man, everybody listening to that was like, "What are you talking about, $10,000 PC? No gamer has a $10,000 PC." You know what? He was telling the truth, because pretty soon that's where we're headed. That's literally where we're headed. $10,000 gaming PC will potentially become the norm. And if you don't like that idea, well, guess what? Maybe cloud streaming of your games from like GeForce Now is your future. That's the reality that he's wishing for. That's the thing. So there was another thing too, like streaming is kind of a thing. Like there was some, oh man, it was was it the Take-Two Interactive or Rockstar? Somebody, no, I forgot who it was. There was a CEO, there was some kind of game company CEO interviewed recently, talking about how the future for gamers is cloud streaming. And he was talking for real. And this is a CEO of a big AAA game studio saying this. Like, he wants this to happen. Remember, I told you guys that the game developers, they want to go to streaming your games. They don't want people buying GeForce graphics cards. They don't want consumers to own the hardware. They only want the consumers to have a console or some kind of terminal, like a basic laptop or a MacBook Pro or something, to be able to access the cloud to stream the game over the internet. Just like how people gave up DVDs, Blu-rays, VHS, all those things are a shadow of their former selves, because now we've got all these stream services. There's like so many: Hulu, Disney Plus, Netflix, Viki, all the Rakuten. I mean, there's like so many now. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and people people slowly made that transition over the last 20 years or so. About 20 years. The advent of streaming media over the internet, video on demand, became a thing, and it slowly permeated the consumer market. globally, and it's slowly, or at least in the developed world, that's definitely true. And it's taken away from physical media and you actually owning things. Everything is now subscription based. The gaming industry is the next thing. Like, they want this. The vast majority of AAA game studios, they actually want this to become the reality. A lot of these live service games that are on like smartphones, most of those games are already cloud streamed. The vast majority of the things from the way those games are structured are already mostly cloud stream based. Like, you're not doing a lot of heavy lifting on the phone end, on the client end for the game now. You still have to have a certain decent phone to play certain games on mobile. But more and more I've noticed that cloud, the server side, is starting to handle more and more of the actual functionality of the game, and less is being done on the client side. So this is the sort of thing. This is the next trend of video game development. The other thing too that's happening is AI. You talk to any developer, whether it's in the gaming industry or in software development, they'll tell you, man, they are forced to use AI tools. If they're not using AI tools, they're going to be put on a performance improvement plan. And if you work for a large company, you know exactly what that means. You either embrace AI and you use it, or you will basically not work there anymore. That's what's happening to a lot of these software developers. And I'm not just talking about people who work in the gaming industry. I'm talking about software development everywhere. You will basically embrace AI, or you will be replaced by another human being that will embrace AI. So they're not at the point where they're replacing humans with AI. They're just replacing humans that don't want to use AI with humans that will use AI. So you basically have no choice. If you want to work for like EA Games or Epic Games or Take-Two Interactive or Rockstar, or, name your game company. It doesn't really matter, like, that's how it works now. So they have to justify all this spend on all this OpEx and CapEx spend on AI tooling. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, why are you spending all this money paying OpenAI or Anthropic every month for your employees if the employees aren't using the service? And the other thing too is like, well, you better be optimally using the service. Don't be just spending tokens for the sake of spending tokens. Imagine like the company is like this. You work at a company and they give you a bunch of like Chuck E. Cheese tokens every day, and you're supposed to spend your tokens on the arcade machines in the Chuck E. Cheese or the main event or whatever. And if you come back at the end of the day and you still have a big old pile of tokens that you didn't use on the arcade machines, you are in big trouble. The opposite of that is also true. If you spent all your tokens and you don't have any more tokens and you need more tokens, you're also in trouble. So it's crazy, man. Like, AI has completely changed the how software developers' jobs are. Like, in most large, if not all large companies, because they're all like, all the upper management. What I think a lot of people that are just watching this play out from the sidelines, not really knowing what's going on behind the scenes, what a lot of people don't realize is any employee of a large company in any industry, it doesn't even matter. It could be in construction, it could be in like automation tooling, manufacturing, financial, healthcare services. It could be in any of these industries. Any employee of any of those industries that is in a middle manager to director to vice president to executive vice president to the C level, that's CEO, CTO, COO, CFO, all the C's, C level. Anyone from the C level all the way to like director, middle manager, senior manager, Those guys are completely brainwashed, 100%, 1,000% brainwashed to believe in AI as the future. So if anyone under them is against the whole AI thing, or they're gonna misuse it, like they're gonna waste all their tokens to run up a big bill from Anthropic or OpenAI because they spent all their tokens, or they don't use the tokens, yeah, they're gonna be in trouble. They're gonna be in big trouble. So as an employee, they're in big trouble. So that's the new order. That's the new way that the world works these days, and it's kind of crazy. But everyone's like, "Oh, AI, man, AI." Well, yeah, this is how AI has changed the job industry behind the scenes. So yeah, I mean that's the thing, and it's like if you're an AI startup company, well, who are you looking for? Like, who are you trying to get in your product in front of? Well, all the people that I just mentioned, the directors, the vice presidents, the C-level management. You want to show your AI product to them and sell them on the idea of how your AI product from your startup company will help their workforce be more efficient, work more optimally, be more productive, simplify things that are repetitive to allow the workforce to scale up and basically be more innovative. I mean, that's kind of the story. That's how they sell the story of AI. So, yeah, this AI stuff, man, a lot of people are like, man, I wish this would go away. Unfortunately, it's not going to go away because it is so firmly embedded now in the corporate structure that there's literally no way to just pull the plug on it. You know, it's impossible. It's impossible. And then you have all these companies like Intel, you know, backing it up. AMD, obviously. These are the arms dealers. They're selling the chips. You got SK Hynix, Samsung, Micron, Nanya, CXMT. You got all these guys printing all the DRAM gold for the AI. So it's like the golden goose, as they say. So it's like all these DRAM guys. This is the chicken coop, man. You gotta go get the golden eggs. That's basically what AI has turned into now. It's crazy because I think about like 10 years ago, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Yeah, I can't believe it's been like a decade. Bitcoin and Ethereum was the thing, but because it was so niche and nuanced, and people kept thinking that Bitcoin was a scam, like it just never got the sort of it didn't have the sort of market penetration that AI has had. Like the success that AI has had, Bitcoin never had that level of success. Like there was too much skepticism. Like you try to present Bitcoin to a CEO of a company, he's gonna think that you're trying to scam him or it's some kind of fake news or whatever. Maybe for every one CEO you can convince that Bitcoin is the future, you'll have like 100 or 99 CEOs that don't believe a word you're saying. So that's the reason why crypto never attained, it never was able to embed itself into the corporate society the way AI has managed to do that. So it's kind of interesting, just some interesting parallels to think about there. All right. So yeah, we looked at this article. Um what else? What else was there? TSMC makes big announcement and confirms 98%. Okay, well here's another one. So TSMC makes a big announcement and confirms 98% yield for the CoWoS packaged AI chips. So it's just another AI thing. Yeah, AI, more AI news. Like this is it, guys. Like all the R&D is focused on making AI better, whether it's just more processing power, more energy efficiency, shrink those nodes, get those new chips, all in the name of AI. So, that's what it's all about. AI, everyone's favorite acronym of the 2020 decade, AI. What do you think about some states pausing building of new data centers. Well, you know the reason why they're pausing the build of data centers is because of the strain that it puts on the electrical grid and as well as natural gas. But mostly the electrical grid. They're not pausing it because of like water and other things. It's really mainly because of electrical reasons, like power related reasons. That's the thing. And this applies to like any area any area where they're thinking about pausing AI data center builds. Philadelphia has a large AI data center next to the Delaware River. All you have to do is follow the big electric power lines. The area is heavily patrolled by police. Yeah, well, it's the electric generation. We've talked about AI rack scale on this channel before. We've talked about NVIDIA's NVL72 architecture. We've talked about the whole I've shown you guys using Paint what's inside an AI factory. Like, how is it actually connected? What we haven't really talked about, well, actually, no, we did talk about the power consumption. The power consumption is the problem. And when you go and you look at the, like AMD's Project Helios, for example, like the Helios rack, the double width rack. Let me go find that. Man, these guys have like the worst search engine. Like, how is it that when I search something on WCCF Tech's website, the results are from like 10 years ago? What? And then like way down here, you got to scroll down and then you find one that's like 2 weeks ago. Everything else is like a decade ago. Like, what is up with their search engine? They have the most garbage search engine I've ever used. AMD's Helios rack reportedly cost 40. So this is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something talking about the like that shows the does it show the power consumption numbers? Like, the power consumption numbers are the problem. So, okay, NVIDIA Vera Rubin NVL72, which we have covered in depth on this channel, enters this stage with a monstrous 10x uplift in token throughput versus Blackwell, achieves 800,000 tokens per second versus GB200's 80,000 at the same. Look at this. Oh, it's only 150 megawatts, guys. It's only 150 megawatts. I mean, 150 megawatts. I mean, how much power is that? What? The Chernobyl reactor that exploded in 1986, when it spiked before the reactor exploded, I think it got up to like 32 megawatts. It was like 32 megawatts to cause the explosion. Man, this thing only uses like 150 megawatts. I mean, okay. I mean, this is like, oh, the Chernobyl exploded from a measly 32 megawatts? Huh. Man, we're pulling 150 megawatts to run our AI, man. Like, that's nothing. What is this? Like, hold on. What's the math on this? Man, this is like 5 Chernobyls. This is like 5 Chernobyls right here. I mean, so see what I'm saying? This is the reason why they're thinking like, hey man, we might need to pause the build out on these things. Because that's a lot of power. That's a lot of Chernobyls. That's a lot of nuclear power plants that you need. You know, like modern nuclear power plants are in the gigawatts. But, you know, a good example is, what was it, like Elon was saying that they're going to build like a 2 gigawatt AI factory somewhere in the US. Like, I remember that number being thrown around, like 2 gigawatts, and I was like, 2 gigawatts? Like, where are you going to whip up 2 gigawatts, man? Where are you going to get that from? Like, what are you going to do? Like, raise the electric rates of, like, all Americans to pay for your 2 gigawatts data center that you need for your AI? Like, so this is the problem, man. Like, it's the power. It's the electrical consumption. And we've done all of the analysis on this channel back in, like, October of last year or it was sometime last year. There was an episode of Tech Thursdays dedicated to this whole AI factory topic. And we did like another one earlier this year, but it wasn't as in depth as the one last year, but if you're curious in how a lot of this stuff works, definitely check out, I forget the episode number, but it was some episode from October or November of last year. That's all I remember. But yeah, look at all these racks, man. Like, this is, you're talking about when you start talking in gigawatts, and the moment you start talking about gigawatts, that should make anyone who lives in that state or that area just be like, no, because this is very problematic. Texas said new data centers need 445 gigawatts while the grid is under. Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I mean. Like, the amount of electricity that they need, you basically have to go with nuclear power. You have to go with nuclear power if you truly want these AI data centers in the sort of quantities that these AI companies desire. Like, you have to have nuclear reactors for this. Like, you can't, what are you going to do? Like, hydroelectric can only do so much. Diesel, what are you going to do? You're going to, like, use up all the diesel? You're going to use up all the natural gas so that no one can use natural gas for heating their water in their homes or their heaters in the winter because some random data center decided that they need all of the natural gas on offer? Like, it's kind of insane when you think about it. Like, that is why they're pausing the build out, because the electrical requirements, the power consumption requirements are unrealistic. This is why chip design, this has already happened behind the scenes, but there is a fundamental shift in design philosophy. They can't just try to design the most powerful chip anymore. There's going to be a huge emphasis on performance per watt. That I know internally, all these companies, all these chip design companies like NVIDIA, one of their top 3 priorities now is perf per watt. Because if it's like, hey man, if the government's not gonna allow OpenAI or Anthropic or whoever to build their AI factory, and if the government's like, stop in the name of the law, then NVIDIA, the only thing you can do is work on energy efficiency in your chip design. Because, I mean, yeah. As long as when it melts down, they hand out charcoal tablets for free. Well, I mean, what about nuclear? Like, do you guys think... Here, let's do a poll real quick. Do you want them to... Okay, here's the poll, guys. Here's the question of Tech Thursdays. Do you want them being utility companies or whoever, this could be municipalities, county commissioners, could get the building rights or whoever, then hand it off to some contractor to do the build out. It doesn't matter, right? Like, the point is, do you want the government, which will probably farm it out to some company, to build nuclear power plants for the purposes of AI, not for powering homes, not for powering like regular residential and consumer infrastructure. This is solely for AI data centers. Only for AI data centers, meaning they're not going to pull their power off of the electrical grid. They're going to have to use nuclear power plants to deliver the power they need. Because, man, they're talking about gigawatts. These guys want gigawatts. We all know how Chernobyl exploded. We know the numbers of the megawatts that the Chernobyl reactor was generating right up until the moment it exploded. And the amount of electricity that these AI factories require is way more electricity than the amount of electricity that blew up the Chernobyl reactor. Like the spike, right as it blew up, that's way less than the amount of electricity these AI data centers need. Think about that. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, if you're completely lost in this whole what is Chernobyl? What's he talking about? Go watch the Chernobyl mini series. I think you can watch it on. I think it's Hulu or Amazon Prime has it. I think I watched it a number of years ago. It was extremely depressing to watch, but it was a very fascinating thing to watch. The fact that the reactor exploded due to negligence from upper management. It was primarily upper management that caused it. It wasn't really the workers. It wasn't really the workers' fault in the end. It was really upper. It was middle management and upper management. But it is a fascinating story that shows like it's so it's not I wouldn't say it's a tough watch. It is a fascinating thing to watch. I highly recommend it. That was a brutal show. Yeah, man. The Chernobyl miniseries was great. I think it was awesome. It basically shows you how poor planning, impatience, mismanagement, but then like how can lead to a disaster. But then the other thing that it portrays is the lives of the people that had to deal with the cleanup, the people that were forced to put their lives on the line effectively, to deal with the radiation, to be exposed to it, to deal with the problem, like the people who had to leave their homes permanently because the place was radioactive. Yeah, it's just it's an amazing thing to watch. But we're getting sidetracked here talking about the Chernobyl miniseries. But if you haven't seen it already, I highly, highly recommend it. I think I saw it like 3 years ago. When it was like, I didn't watch it when it first came out. I watched it, I think, like a year after it came out. So whenever that was, I think 2023. 2023, 2022, I can't remember. It was one of those years. It was a while ago. But man, that was really good. Anyway, these AI data centers, they need the power of nuclear reactors. Seriously. This isn't even this might even be an understatement. They need nuclear reactors. Seriously. To power the sort of electrical demands that they have. So, the fact that liquid cooling is the norm, like liquid cooling is the default. Look at this. Liquid cooling. Liquid cooling. All of it liquid cooled. Look at these copper heat pipes everywhere. Look at the tubing, everything. All liquid cooled. All liquid cooled. Liquid cooling. Liquid cooling. The fact that liquid cooling in a server is the norm now shows you why they need nuclear power. The amount of heat and power density. They're like, oh, it's only 150 megawatts, man. It's only 150 megawatts, like, can you loan us another 150 megawatts? Like it's only 150, but it all adds up because it's like you're talking about turning up a 2 gigawatt data center, like that ain't no easy feat. It doesn't happen every day. How does the sun cool itself? Well, the heat radiates outward into the vastness of space. Space is basically the heat sink. Space is the heat sink, man. Space is very, very cold. It's very dark and it's very cold. Because think of it like if you've ever jumped into like a swimming pool, like if you cannonball yourself into a swimming pool, the initial shock The temperature shock that you feel is your body's heat literally being pulled away from you into the cold water. It's that heat transfer that happens instantaneously. You're basically dissipating all of your body's surface heat into the water. So the sun's floating in outer space. Outer space is this giant, think of it like a giant swimming pool, and the sun is constantly radiating out the heat into space. So the space is the heat sink. It's an interesting question. How does the sun cool itself? Okay, so I had to actually answer that in a job interview once. That's how I know that. Okay, so I think that covers the random hardware news that I found interesting. AMD 9000 GPU official price increase. Oh, we talked about that last week. Razor Lake.
Still struggling to decide whether I should just sell my spare RAM, 48 8000 or 64 6000, and CPU, 7950X3D, or use M to build a third PC. Letting them sit in a box in this market seems to be a
Well, you could think of it like the RAM that's sitting there doing nothing is like a spare tire. But that's only really a problem if you are overclocking your RAM, your current RAM that you're using, and you're like overvolting the RAM and you don't have active cooling on it and that kind of thing. Because RAM can fail over a period of time due to temperature degrading it, and if it's overvolted. A lot of this RAM that's sold with like an Expo or an XMP profile spec'd for 1.4 volts or especially 1.45 volts is way too high. Way too high. So for long-term use. So eventually that RAM that's spec'd for the Expo profile or XMP profile of like 1.45 volts, that'll eventually go bad. It's not a matter of if it'll go bad, it's a matter of when it will go bad. So if you're doing that kind of thing, it's not a bad idea to have an extra pair of RAM on hand if that starts happening, because they have to RMA the RAM you're using. But if you don't do that, like if you're like me and you don't send your RAM over 1.35 volts, then it's up to you. But like Fake Frames just said, RAM isn't going down in price. In fact, it's actually continuing to go up in price. So if you hold on to it for at least until like the holiday season, you might actually be able to make even more money if you decide to sell it later this year. That's why I was saying earlier, if we don't see the price of DDR5 flatline by spring of next year, then we're going to have some serious problems with RAM prices, because the RAM prices, I can't see them continuing to go up forever. Obviously, they're not going to go up forever. But the question is, when will they stop going up in price? That is the question. Because if they flatline around spring of next year, because I expect the price to stabilize around April through June of next year. We'll see if I'm right, but that is my estimate based on everything that I've seen play out. The parallels that I see to Bitcoin and how GPU pricing was in 2021, because you have to remember, okay, well, maybe this super chat is what activates Paint on this episode of Tech Thursdays. So congratulations, you unlocked Paint. So if you remember the pandemic, the global pandemic was 2020. Pandemic Part 2 was 2021. And then there was the year 2022, the year of Elden Ring. So we had 3 major events. We had Pandemic Part 1. We had Pandemic Part 2. And we had Elden Ring. These were like the major world changing events of, you know, those years. Now, one thing to remember. So what happened around this time? So let's go back in time here. Was it September or October? It was basically, we'll just say Q4 2020 was the beginning of the end for the gamers from this time period. This was known as the beginning of what I refer to as the dark times. The dark times. And 2021 was the year. That was the year. Like 2021 was the year of Newegg Shuffle. It was the year of what is it? Fix it. Like this, like it was the year of 24/7 live stream trackers for RTX 30 series, PS5, Xbox Series X, Ryzen 5000, Radeon 7000. This is the year 2021. 2021. $900 RTX 3060 Ti, $1,500 RX 6800 XT, $2,000 RTX 3080. So do you remember what I'm talking about? This is 2021. The most infamous year of the current decade. The dark times. The dark times. The John Travolta meme stream, fix it live streams where you go in and you just watch the random tracker thing flowing out of stock, and then randomly every now and then there'll be like a alert thing. Woo, it's in stock. 3080 Founders Edition Best Buy in stock, then out of stock, and then it just goes quiet again. 2021, man. If you were there, you know what I'm talking about. These are known as the dark times. The dark times for PC enthusiasts. 2021. That was the year. Then what happened? Then that one guy from NVIDIA, man, what was the name of that guy? I always forget his name, man. Was his name Jeff? What was the name of that guy? The dude who's like, I have one more thing, and then he's like, he holds up the thing, the Founders Edition, RTX 3080 Ti. You know, like RTX 3080 Ti, RTX 3080, yeah, RTX 3080 Ti, RTX 3080 Ti. You know, RTX 3080 Ti. Like, what is he saying? The RTX 3080 Ti. That guy. That was 2021. The year of the John Travolta meme streams, the Jake Randall live streams for PS5 and all that stuff. That was a really weird time to be into building computers. Like, it was weird, man. Yeah, that stuff. That was 2021. That was also the year of, like, fun. Let's just keep going with this. I don't know where we're going with this. This is random. I don't know if this is going to become a clip video. This is really weird. This was the year of Intel 11th gen Rocket Lake. Rocket Lake. So if you wanted to build, okay, so it's like the Dark Times PC build consists of an Intel 11th gen Rocket Lake with RTX 3080 Ti and Z590 PCIe Gen 4 SSD or support. Yeah, that was like the PC, man. Like the PC. The Dark Times. like imagine getting an Intel 11th gen in 2021 at the launch in like April, and then getting an RTX 3080 Ti. Oh, and by the way, just so you guys remember, RTX 3080 Ti, every RTX 3080 Ti are LHR. Not that didn't really matters today, but I'm just saying, like, that was another thing that people would always complain about because they're like, man, I needed to mine my crypto, my ETH. People would talk about ETH. Man, how much, do you even have ETH? Like, do you even ETH? Do you even ETH? Do you even ETH? Do you have ETH? How much ETH you got? You know, ETH? No, LHR. My GPU's LHR. Oh, man, yeah, no. Like, this type of weird, like, this was a really weird time to be into the PC space because you had all these weirdos talking in acronyms like LHR, my ETH, my ETC, LHR, BTC. Like, I'm thinking, no, go away, man. I don't know, no. The more you buy, the more you save. Go away. The more you buy, the more you save. Go away. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, the Dark Times was one of the stupidest times to be into building a computer. It was like the worst time ever. Because you, like, if you wanted a PS5, go watch the John Travolta meme stream for like 5 hours. Maybe you'll get lucky. You know, if you want a RTX 3080 Ti LHR so you can mine Ethereum on your nerfed GPU, then go watch the John Travolta meme streams for another 5 hours. You know, like, ridiculous nonsense, man. Ridiculous nonsense. Like, the 2021, the Dark Times. The Dark Times. Terrible year. Terrible year. So, what else? So then we come to 2022. 2022. Oh, Intel double launched in 2021. Just saying. The last thing, we might not spend too much time on this. 2021 was also the WoW. For those of you who are the gamers, those of you that are the gamers, not just PC enthusiasts, but the gamers. 2021 was also the WoW Exodus. The WoW Exodus. Now, most people probably don't remember this, but if you were someone who played World of Warcraft during the Dark Times, God forbid your GPU didn't die. If you were in a static raid group, that would be catastrophic. But if you were someone who was playing WoW during the Dark Times, you probably remember the exodus of WoW. Like, meaning a bunch of people would leave World of Warcraft for various reasons during 2021, and they would go to Final Fantasy 14. So Final Fantasy 14, so I was someone who did not play WoW during this time, but I was someone who did play Final Fantasy 14, and you had what was called the WoW refugees. The WoW refugees coming into Final Fantasy 14, flooding the servers, flooding the login queues, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you want to log into the game? It's like, it usually would be like a 15-second wait time, maybe 30-second wait time to log in. Like, like a normal login. Now with the WoW refugees, man, 2-minute wait time, 3-minute wait time. Well, guess what? Guess what? Intel 12th gen launched with Windows 11, and then Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker launches. And now, you, depending on the server that you're in or the data center that you log into for Endwalker, you're talking about, you know, minimum 45 minutes, maximum like 2-hour, 3-hour login wait times to get in to play the game. It was so bad. So not only do you have all this Ethereum, all this random stuff, LHR, random crypto mining, all this stuff, GPUs are so expensive, you can't buy one. PS5s are always out of stock. Scalpers are selling everything on eBay. Like, not only is this going on, but then you also have all the WoW people going into Final Fantasy 14, flooding the login queues, and then it's like, oh man, 12th gen Intel E-cores did not play nicely with Final Fantasy 14 because the whatever sort of, I don't know if it's like an anti-cheat thing. There was like something in the Final Fantasy 14 client that didn't like the E-cores. If part of the game got assigned to an E-core, and if it stayed on the E-core for an extended period of time, the game could actually end up crashing. So imagine you're playing this game at launch. So it's like November or December of 2021. And it takes you like an hour or more, like 90 minutes to get into the game so you can actually play the game. And then you play the game for like, I don't know, like 40 minutes or something. And then the game crashes to desktop. It just force closes the game randomly with a vague error message. And it's all because you decided to upgrade to the Intel 12th gen from the botched 11th gen. So you literally bought like 2 motherboards and 2 CPUs in the same year within 6 months of each other. And now the newer, faster CPU is causing your most anticipated game to randomly crash on you because of the stupid E-core. And then you have to troubleshoot and figure that out with no knowledge of E-cores and what they do because they're literally a brand new thing that has never been done before. It's like, good luck with that. So, yeah, I ran into this. I'm describing a real-world thing that actually happened to me. So I will forever, this is forever ingrained into my memory because I was traumatized by the E-core crashing Endwalker, then having to go back into the login queue and wait another 90 minutes to get back in the game. Only to have it crash again, like when I finally get in. Then finally figuring out that the only true fix, eventually I assume they fix it with BIOS updates, but the only fix at the time is to go into the BIOS and turn off all the E-cores. So the game will always run on the P-cores. Answer the poll. The poll's 50-50. So do you want... People are pretty mixed. People are pretty mixed on the nuclear power plants. So it's dead split, man. Half of the people who voted say no, and the other half say yes. And that's about a 50% participation rate. So anyway, 2021. Where was I going with this? I don't even know why we're talking about this. Oh, we're drawing parallels to the here and now. That's where we're going. So then fast forward to 2022. 2022 started out like a continuation of 2021. So the whole first half of 2022 felt a lot like 2021. So what happened in 2022? 2022, March, that same guy from NVIDIA, I forget his name. I think his name is like Jeff or Steve or something. He gets on the thing again. And he's like, and he announces RTX 3090 Ti. So he announces RTX 3090 Ti. 3090 Ti. The RTX 3090 Ti. Yes, 3090 Ti is a 2022 graphics card. So he launches RTX 3090 Ti with an MSRP of 2,000. Yeah, Jeff Fisher. I was like, man, that guy seems like he's a Jeff. He just seems like a Jeff. I can't remember his last name. Jeff Fisher. Okay, Fisher. That's an easy name to remember. Jeff Fisher. That's the guy. He's the guy who in 2021 announced RTX 3080 Ti, and then a year late, literally a year later, he announces RTX 3090 Ti for $2,000. So this immediately sells out, as you can imagine, even at an MSRP of $2,000. And so it's kind of the same thing. It's like, oh, I still can't get a PS5. But around this time, you can start getting, if you try hard enough, you can end up getting a PS5. It's not like it's impossible like it was like the previous year, but you can get a PS5 around this time. It's starting to normalize a little bit for the consoles. The Xbox Series X is not too hard to get at this point in time, but you know, the GPUs are still a problem. The GPUs are still constantly scalped and overpriced, and you gotta buy one off a Newegg, but it'll also come with a motherboard for a CPU that you don't have, so you can't even use that motherboard, so you have to sell that motherboard to somebody else or whatever, or just keep it on a wall as like a trophy or something. Like it was such a strange continuation, but then something kind of happened in two major events happened in 2022. So two things happened in 2022 besides Elden Ring. So one of the things that happened was the pandemic just kind of ended. It's just kind of like ended. Like people just started going places again. It's like it's hard to explain. Like people just stopped worrying and they just kind of like went back to normal. I don't know if it was like this for everyone, but for me, like I just remember in 2022, people just started. You stopped seeing people wearing masks all the time, and it's just like places that used to be empty in 2021 started seeing more people crowding around the area. So like liminal spaces started getting back to normal. Restaurants started getting more customers in them again. So the restaurant business was in like a huge winter. You think we're in a DRAM winter. Imagine like if you were a restaurant business, like a family-owned restaurant business, man, they had to weather that storm because that was pretty bad. So it just kind of like ended. And the other thing that happened was Ethereum changed from proof of work to proof of stake. And this second event was probably this was definitely the more impactful event for the PC enthusiasts. Because this is the thing. This was like the moment where the hammer fell and it finally broke through the dark times. And when this happened, all of a sudden, it was like the sundering occurred. And now, from that moment forward, it was no longer profitable for most people who were doing mining of Ethereum to to reach a return on investment. This is the event that finally, like, changed everything back to normal. It force changed, it force corrected pricing, availability, inventory, all that stuff changed. All within like 3 weeks. It was like things immediately went back to normal. And the most ironic thing about this was shortly after this happened, Zen 4 launched. Then RTX 4090 and ARC A70 launched. So it's like shortly after, and then 13th gen launched, and then 13th gen launched. So it's like it's like you were stuck in this ice age, and then all of a sudden the clouds parted and the sun shone through. It's like the hammer fell, and all of a sudden the ice shattered, and everything hidden underneath started getting revealed. You know, all these things all showed up right at the end. Right after the whole proof of stake thing happened, Zen 4 followed by all this stuff at the trail end of that year. So 2022 is an interesting year. The year of Elden Ring was a very interesting year for the hardware enthusiasts because you went from the beginning of the year being basically the continuation of the dark times, and by the end of that year, things are back to normal. So that's 2022. So now, why am I talking about this? Because where are we? Let's just skip a couple of years here. This was 2023, 2024, 25, this year, next year. Well, okay, yeah, this year and next year. 2023 is the year of gaming. We're not going to spend too much time talking about 2023 unless you guys want to talk about it. 2023 goes down in history as the year of gaming. There was no other year currently in this decade. In this current decade, 2023 is the year of gaming. So if you were a gamer, 2023 was your year. That was the peak. That was the peak year of gaming. Yes, Elden Ring was 2022. Not everybody's into Elden Ring. So the year of gaming was not the year of Elden Ring. It was the year of 2023. 2023 saw so many games. 2023, the year of gaming. Just to name a few, let's name some games of 2023. Forspoken, Hogwarts Legacy, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. What else? Was Street Fighter that year? I think was Street Fighter that year? I think Resident Evil 4 was Resident Evil 4 remake that year? I think it was. Yeah, it was. It was definitely 2023. 2023 was the year of gaming. I think Street Fighter. Yeah, Street Fighter was that year. Street Fighter, was it Street Fighter 6? Street Fighter 6. Final Fantasy 16. 16. Baldur's Gate 3. Was Alan Wake 2 that year? I guess it was. Was it? Was it? Cyberpunk is not 2023. Cyberpunk is a pandemic game, bruh. Was Baldur's Gate Spider-Man 2? Are you sure about that Spider-Man 2? Was it? Are you sure it wasn't? You might be right, because God of War Ragnarok, I think, was 2022. That was the Elden Ring, because God of War Ragnarok went up against Elden Ring for Game of the Year and ended up losing to it. There's a lot, though. There's more. I don't know about Alan Wake. You guys have to double check on Alan Wake. I don't know about that one. Lies of P. Lords of the Fallen. Armored Core. Armored Core 6. Fibers. Fires of Rubicon. I mean, the list goes on and on. I could list so many games from 2023. 2023 was a unique year because it was a year where there was so many great games. Alan Wake. Okay, Alan Wake. Yeah, Alan Wake 2 sounds correct. Spider-Man, I think, that sounds correct, because God of War Ragnarok was the big game before that, and that was Elden Ring year. Is it Spider-Man 2 or is it Spider-Man 2? How is that spelled? I think it's one word, right? Is it two words? This was like the year of gaming. Oh, how can we forget everyone's favorite? Starfield. Starfield finally came out. Baldur's Gate 3 finally went from early access. Oh, it's spelled with a what? That's how it's spelled? Anyway. Tears of the Kingdom. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Wait, Tears of the Kingdom? Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, it's very hard to compete with 2023 for games. Like, there was something for everyone that year. Yeah, Diablo. You're right, Diablo. I was thinking there was like a game I'm forgetting that was around like May, June timeframe. Diablo was that game that I was forgetting. Diablo 4. So many games. It was so stacked. That year was so stacked. Like, my favorite games of that year were Hogwarts Legacy, Final Fantasy 16, Lords of the Fallen. Those are probably my top three. If I'm going to do top five, Fires of Rubicon, and ooh, this one's tough. The last one's going to be between Baldur's Gate 3 and Lies of P. I never actually finished Baldur's Gate, so I'm going to have to say Lies of P. But Baldur's Gate 3 ended up winning Game of the Year. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. Oh, yeah, you're right. That was at the end. Unfortunately for Avatar, that game ended up getting lumped in with the following year for when it comes to a rewards aspect. But yeah, you're right. That was like December. God of War Ragnarok was 2022. I'm pretty sure. If Spider-Man 2 was 2023, then God of War Ragnarok was definitely not 2023. That was 2022. I strongly remember Ragnarok competing with Elden Ring in 2022 for Game of the Year. So no, you're wrong. It's 2022. But yeah, Avatar, yes. God of War, no. But yeah, you can, like the point is, 2023 was the year of gaming. God of War Ragnarok release date? Are you sure? No, you're wrong. It's November 9th, 2022. You're talking about December 12th is an expansion. That's Valhalla DLC. Are you talking about Valhalla DLC? I'm talking about the actual game. That's a DLC. Okay. That was the year of gaming. 2023. There hasn't been basically, after 2023, there hasn't been like 24, 25 this year. None of the next 3 years can match that year. I mean, you've got some really good games that came out last year, 2 years ago, this year, but it's all about like for the few high quality games, you don't have as many quality games that you had. Like, because 2023 had not only was there a lot of games, there were a lot of good games. That's the key point that I'm trying to make. That's what makes it the year of gaming for this decade, is because it had a lot of great games. I mean, last year we had like Expedition 33. I mean, you got a couple of good ones, excellent ones, but you don't have the sheer volume of great games that you had in 2023. So, yeah, that year was fantastic. The year of gaming. So 2 years ago, 2024, how would I remember that year? What defines that year? 2024. 2024, I gotta think back. What was it like 2 years ago? What were we doing around that time? That was another hardware refresh year. That was the year of like Zen 5. That was Zen 5 and Arrow Lake. You know, Intel. So, like, in terms of hardware releases, 2024 was Ryzen 9000 and Core Ultra 200 series. Like, those were the new things in the second half of 2024. GP 50 series was supposed to come out that year, and NVIDIA delayed it into 2025. So you didn't really have anything in that year on the GPU side. You had the Super 40 series Super was like at the start of 2024, but that was kind of like whatever. And then you had what was AMD's 9000 was last year. So yeah, you didn't really have a whole lot if you were, I mean, unless you were wanting to build like a whole new computer, these were the new things. PS5 Pro launched that year. It wasn't really that interesting actually, now that I think about it. I'm trying to think, like, what were the games that came out that year? Oh, Dragon's Dogma 2. Oh, there were some nice games that came out that year. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, which we recently did a whole bunch of live streams on because of the expansion that came out like back in July last month. That's literally all we did on the weekend was stream Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. The other game was Dragon's Dogma 2. That was Capcom's big game. Capcom did Resident Evil 4 in 2023, the year of gaming, but for 2024, they did Dragons. They also did Street Fighter in 2023. Capcom did 2 games in 2023. Dragon's Dogma 2 was a really good game, though. And this is a game that we will also be revisiting later this year with the Dark Arisen expansion. So these are 2 games that came out 2 years ago, and they're both getting or have already gotten big expansions 2 years later. So, 2024 seems kind of like, If you were a hardware enthusiast, I mean, there was kind of some stuff. I mean, there was like a new Intel socket, although it was kind of underwhelming. And then the AMD Zen 5 was also kind of underwhelming. Because I remember the Zen 5% memes and the Intel negative 2.5% memes or whatever. Like, whatever those memes were. Yeah, Black Myth Wukong was 2024. The Astrobot game was also that year, wasn't it? Oh, man, how am I forgetting? Oh, right there, right between these 2 games. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was that year. Yeah, that was the big Square Enix game. Oh, Dawn Trail. Oh, now it's coming back to me, man. It's coming back to me since you mentioned Black Myth Wukong. Now it's coming back to me. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We streamed that whole thing on stream that year. Dragons, and you know, I was thinking like, why did I stop playing this game so early on? Because there was a bunch of stuff for me to do in this game, but after I beat the game, I stopped playing the game. I didn't do the post game, and I understand now why that was. It was because immediately after I beat this game, Rebirth launches. So it's like, obviously, I'm gonna play this over this. So, and then I did, and then Dragon's Dogma 2 came out like right after Rebirth. So the first part of like January, February, March, you literally have January, February, March. And was Helldivers 2 that year? Wasn't that also Helldivers 2? Metaphor ReFantazio, Black Myth Wukong, those games came like in the second half. Helldivers 2 was also around this time. We're talking early in 2024. Helldivers 2. Yeah. Yeah, those are the games. And then, like you said, Black Myth Wukong was like summer. I forget when Balatro came out. I never played that. So I don't really... I remember it being in that list of nominees. Black Myth was there. Balatro was there. Although I don't really... I don't have any really knowledge of this game. Monster Hunter Wilds was 2025. You're talking about the open beta that I covered, but that doesn't count. Metaphor. Yeah, Metaphor. ReFantazio was that year. Yeah, there were good ones, but notice how this list pales in comparison to the list that we just did for 2023. Indiana Jones. Okay. Yeah, that would have been like the Avatar Pandora game, how it came out at the very end of the year. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. That was like at the end of the year. Wasn't there also like a Star Wars game? Or maybe I'm thinking of last year. There was like some Star Wars game that came out. It was like it's not a Jedi. It's like you play as like a female Han Solo or something. I forget what the game was called, but that might have been last year. Yeah, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Helldivers 2. I wish I didn't delete that list, man. That 2023 list was so epic. So 2024. So, you know, you got some really good games that year. The Astrobot was that year. Yeah, there was some good ones. Warhammer was that year. Yeah, but compared to 23, man, like this list is not as good. 2023 had something for everyone. This kind of like, okay, this is like a co-op action game. This is a co-op shooter. This is a single player RPG, action RPG. This is a single player RPG with asynchronous online elements. This is a single player action game. What is this? Is this a card game? I don't actually know what this is. I think it's a card game. This is a RPG. This is a single player action game. This is a platformer. Stellar Blade. But yeah, again, another like action game. Like a bunch of like the same genre though. See that's what I mean. Like the lineup is not as varied as the previous year. The previous year had like you had stuff like Street Fighter. You had, that appeals to a certain crowd. You had those really punishing shooter style games like Armored Core. So there was like something that it appealed to a wider audience. You had Baldur's Gate 3, which could be played single player, it could be played co-op. I mean, that game was just fantastic. So there's just way more stuff. Okay, so now we come to last year. So that was 2024. Now we come to last year. Last year was actually really good. Yeah, I already counted Dragon's Dogma. So last year was let's start from the beginning. How do I remember last year? So January we had Dynasty Warriors. I'm not even going to include that. Like, should I? Dynasty Warriors Origins, should I just not include that? I feel like I shouldn't even include that. You had Ninja Gaiden Black on Unreal Engine 5. So Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. That weird extraction game. Dynasty Warriors Origins was January. I mean, I'm not going to write the stuff that's like, whatever. Unless you're like a big fan of Dynasty Warriors. The big one for last year was Monster Hunter Wilds. February last year. So that was the big one. Oh, I'm forgetting the Yakuza games. Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza was last year. That was a pretty good game. Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza. Assassin's Creed Shadows was last year. Claire Obscure. Expedition 33 was last year. Elden Ring. Night Rain. Oh, I forgot 2 games that I wanted to list. Although, since I didn't list Cyberpunk DLC, I didn't want to list the Elden Ring DLC. Because Shadow of the Erd Tree was 2024. That was 2 years ago. But last year was Elden Ring Night Rain. Elden Ring Night Rain. And then Death Stranding. Death Stranding 2. Mario Kart World. Donkey Kong Bonanza. I think that's how you spell that. Donkey Kong Bonanza. The Oblivion Remaster. Doom the Dark Ages. Doom the Dark. That should be further up here. That should be because we're trying to go in chronological order. Doom the Dark Ages. This was like March or like early April. Claire Obscure was end of April. Night Rain was end of May. Death Stranding was June after the Switch 2 launch. So technically, this should be in front of this. Then you have June, July. I mean, there's a bunch of things on here that are kind of like remakes, but I don't really care to list them. But like, I mean, is Metal Gear Solid Delta worth listing? Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater was last year. Hell Is Us. I mean, that's kind of like an indie game that was kind of okay. I never finished it, but I thought it was one of the better indie games. Borderlands 4 was last year. So yeah, man, last year actually... Oh, Tekken 8 was 2024. Man, I completely forgot. I forgot like all my 2024 games. Tekken 8 was like January 2024. And I also forgot that Shadow of the Erd Tree and Dawn Trail were also 2024. So yeah, I could make the 2024 list just as big. But yeah, it's looking like last year has more... I mean, obviously, there's some other games that launched alongside Mario Kart World on the Switch 2 that I did stream some of those games at the launch of the console. So there's that, but this is the big ones, I guess. Outer Worlds 2, Arc Raiders. Arc Raiders was Arc Raiders last year? I guess it was. Why does it feel like it was 2024? I guess you're right. Yeah, Metroid Prime 4 was like at the very end. That was like December. Arc Raiders was really last year. For some reason, I feel like that was... Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was like the... When was that? Yeah, you're right. It was the end. It was like October. It was like right around Halloween. But yeah, last year was pretty good. Last year had a lot of it had a good balance of it's similar to 2023. I still think though when I compare this list to 2023, I think 2023 still had more higher quality games. I mean, this list does seem very varied though. And there's ones here that I can't fit on the page, but you know, this one seems pretty good too. Silent Hill F was not last year. Silent Hill F was 2024. Oh no, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Silent Hill 2 remake when I read that for some reason. Yeah, you're right. Silent Hill F was definitely last year. Silent Hill 2 remake was 2024 though. Man, I'm forgetting. I forgot so many 2024 games that I should have wrote down on that list earlier. Yeah, last year was Silent Hill F. Although to be honest, I actually preferred Silent Hill 2 remake over Silent Hill F. I thought Silent Hill 2 was the better game. Silent Hill F was good, but I think Silent Hill 2 was better. Battlefield 6. Yeah, I think if you were someone who was into shooters, like first person shooter games, I think last year had a better run than the previous year. The previous year had the Space Marine game, which is more like a third person, I guess. Well, yeah, this year or last year had Borderlands, Battlefield 6, Doom: The Dark Ages. So, you know, it was pretty varied because you had really interesting games like Death Stranding 2, which have very varied gameplay. There was like car like Mario Kart. There was some other racing games that were also around the time of the Switch 2 launch. Fast Fusion was one that I remember playing. And then you got your platformer Donkey Kong Bonanza. This was an excellent game. Really quirky, strange games like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza, which is kind of like it's not. It doesn't have the. Is this the turn-based one? I think this is the turn-based one. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, or this game. I forget which one was the turn-based one. It was either this one or it was the one from 2024. But basically, the bottom line is the lineup was pretty varied. I think Alan Wake 2 was 2023. People said that earlier. Man, I should not have deleted the list. I should not have deleted the list. It was 2023. Yeah, Alan Wake 2 was 2023. Man, it's yeah, last year was pretty good though. Although when I think of last year, I only really think of 4 games, guys. Like I can reduce it like personally for me, last year consisted of the following games. This is 2025 from my point of view. Like it was like 4 games. I'm not saying those other games are bad. I'm just saying from my perspective, Wilds and Night Rain were like the live service games that I played, like I put a ton of hours into. And then in terms of like really, really good, excellent story, narrative, soundtrack, graphics, gameplay, Expedition 33 and Death Stranding 2 were like the 2 big games that you had to play last year. Like, these were the games. I forgot, Ghost of Yote was also... But see, I forget, man. When was Ghost of Yote? Was that last year? Yeah, I think it was. Ghost of Yote was last year. Yeah, that was October. But see, that shows you how much I paid attention to it if I can barely remember when it was. I clearly remember Death Stranding 2. I don't really remember Ghost of Yote nearly as well as Death Stranding 2. So that goes to show which one I thought was the better game. And then Expedition 33, definitely. So it's like, this is basically my 2025. If you go and look at the live stream, the gaming live streams from last year, most of the live streams were one of these 4 games. I mean, there was another game. There was the secret game of 2025. That I did the entire game on live stream. Unlike these games where I think I left out some random, like grinding levels were not shown on stream, and some parts of Death Stranding 2, I think the part when you first arrive in Australia was also off stream, but most of the playthrough for these games was on stream. And then the secret game that we're not going to list, that game, the whole playthrough, like the whole Let's Play, is on the channel. So we're going to do the exact same thing this year for the secret game of 2026. Should I call it the secret game or should I call it the mystery game? I don't know. It's the same thing, right? Like, I guess it's the mystery game because we're not going to reveal the name of the game until I live stream the game. Schedule 1? What's Schedule 1? What is that? Oh, that's a game from last year. Well, the fact that I'm asking what that is shows how much I know about it. Yeah, I don't count re-releases of games for other platforms. I only count them when they're new for the first time. So like I did this with Final Fantasy 16. Like Final Fantasy 16 was 2023 because that was a PS5 exclusive in 2023. Likewise, I count Death Stranding 2 for last year because that was when it was new in 2025. So we don't count when they come out whenever they decide to come out on the other platforms. So same thing, like I can say the same thing with like Lies of P. Lies of P is Switch 2 edition. Okay, it's on Switch 2 now. It's like I'm not gonna keep track of that. That's too much to keep track of. Because you're basically having to duplicate the same game in memory, commit that into memory multiple times. It's just too much stuff to keep track of. I mean, it's relevant to people who are interested in the game on that platform. But what I'm saying is we're not going to list the game again just because it's coming out on another platform. Yeah, so this year, I'm looking at games that I was tracking for this year. So now let's talk about this year. And the whole purpose of me doing this was not to talk about a bunch of games. We're kind of like on a tangent right now, but I just want to bring this to a close. And then we're going to come full circle onto why we're actually talking about these different years. So 2026 this year. So this year I wrote down Trails Beyond the Horizon. Code Vein 2, which is one of the most disappointing games of this year. Neo 3 or Dragon Quest 7 Reimagined. Neo 3. Resident Evil Requiem. There's some other ones here that I have listed, but I'm just kind of like skipping over them because they're like, I don't even know. Maybe this might be one worth skipping over, but I know like some people were probably waiting for this for a very long time, myself included. Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly Remake, Crimson or Monster Hunter Stories 3, Crimson Desert, Pragmata. Now we're entering into May because Pragmata was end of May, and I don't have anything listed here for some reason, but Forza Horizon 6 is in there. Forza Horizon 6 was in there. I don't know why I don't have that listed anywhere, though. I literally have, like, nothing in here. I put Echoes of Aincrad. I'm not even going to mention that. Star Fox, So we'll skip over Aincrad. Star Fox. Endless Ragnarok is a DLC, so we'll skip over that one, even though I literally spent almost all of last month playing that. Beast of Reincarnation, I guess I'll mention it, but it is, I don't know, man. Like, it did not review well. I skipped over it. I didn't play it, and I probably won't. Or it's one of those where if I do, it'll probably be like a Steam sale by like a year from now or something. But then even then, I question whether I'll actually finish it. Because oftentimes those like 75% off, 90% off deals, I oftentimes will just buy the game because it's on sale, but then I'll rarely actually finish the game. Like, I'll try it or whatever. Onimusha. Onimusha is next month. And then there's a couple of things. There's like a Halloween game or something. There's the Wolverine game, which I forgot when that's supposed to come out, but it's coming out soon from what I understand. So there's stuff out there. Yeah, Black Flag Resync, that's kind of like a remake too, kind of like the Fatal Frame. So there is stuff. Like, this year's not terrible. But I mean, if I want to reduce this list to make room for other stuff, I'd remove this. I'd put Assassin's Creed on here. Even though I didn't play it. From what I've heard, it's good. Sinking City 2, I don't know what that is. I don't know what else is, like, Grand Theft Auto is coming out this year, supposedly. They're doing pre-orders. So this is also coming out. Wolverine is also coming out. So that's kind of what the lineup looks like. Like, if I want to further condense this, I can remove some of these things, but I guess we can leave it like this for now. Duskblood. Yeah, I mean, there's stuff in here, but to me it seems equivalent to the last 2 years. Like, 2023 still seems better than this year and the last 2 years. It depends on who you are, though. Like, if you play a bunch of shooters, you might think that last year was better than this year or 24 or 23. But I think 23 had something for everyone. That just seemed like an interesting year. Blood of Dawnwalker. Yeah, we'll see. Because I think that game has to prove itself. Because didn't CD Projekt Red like split, and like some of the people that left went off and made the upcoming Blood of Dawnwalker? Or there was some story behind that. I don't really know too much of the details. But I just know, like, I don't know. That game is still kind of like, I'm paying attention to it. I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't normally use that phrase, but for Blood of Dawnwalker, I am cautiously optimistic. Because I remember when Cyberpunk came out in 2020, it was bad. It had issues. And it took them like 2 or 3 years to fix the issues. Yeah, Ace Combat's coming out. There's a Zelda game? What's the Zelda game? I thought this year was a Fire Emblem year. Star Fox and Fire Emblem was this year. There's a Zelda game? Wait, there's a Zelda game? Wait, what? Oh, Ocarina. Oh, man. You had me thinking like it was some kind of new game. Ocarina of Time, yeah, that's good, but that's like remake good. You know what I'm saying? That's like saying Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Or, yeah, that's good. It's good, but it's like technically it's another remake. So, man, you had me thinking for a second, like, what is the Zelda game? I can't remember. I don't remember the trailer. Yeah, Ocarina of Time, but okay. For some reason, I thought, oh, there's a new Zelda game. Like, what? Yeah, Ocarina of Time's good though. That's definitely good, man. That would be like them saying like we're redoing Mario 64 for Switch 2. You know, it's the same kind of thing. Anyway, we need to get back on track. Like, the whole reason why I was talking about this was not to actually list all these games. The whole purpose of this discussion was actually to draw parallels to where we are in 2026 and how things were in 2021 during the dark times. That was the whole reason. We went on a massive tangent talking about all these games. So, if you think about, whoops, put this back. I can leave that there. If you think about how things were, like what was the time frame? So from I don't know, we'll say November 2020 to when did Ethereum go proof of stake? Ethereum proof of stake date. September 15th, 2022. So we'll just say this. That's almost 2 years. That's almost 2 years of waiting. Watching and waiting. So now, okay, when did DDR5 start becoming so expensive? Okay. So October, it could technically also be September of last year, but October 2025. If we try to predict this using the past to predict the future, we can try to say, okay, roughly 2 years, about, you know, like 20 months or so. 20 to 22 months. So we can just estimate about 2 years of how long it will take until we see memory kind of like flatline. And so we could potentially be waiting until, well, do we want to say 2 years exactly? Well, we could basically say Q4 of next year, right? Because that's going to give you your roughly 2 years time frame of when you expect. So earlier in the stream, I was saying the spring of next year is when we should see price stabilization occur for DDR5 industry-wide. Basically a year from now. So, but if we want to look to the past to make a prediction, a more accurate prediction would be Q4. So basically holiday season of next year. So essentially, when the PS, so it's like it's one of these, it's like a Gandalf moment in the Twin Towers. Look to the east on the what day of the week or whatever, on my second coming of the whatever thing, whatever Gandalf told Aragorn in the Two Towers when they were in Rohan's capital. He's like, I'm gonna, oh no, not Rohan. Yeah, it was Two Towers. He's like, I'm gonna go find Aylmer. I'm gonna go bring him back. So you guys hold down the fort during the DDR5 winter. And when you see the sign, when I come back, look to my sign or whatever, the dawn of the second day of the third moon or whatever he said. I can't remember the line that Gandalf used in the movie. But basically, that sign is look to the launch of the PS6 in November of 2027, in the toward the end of next year. That'll be the Gandalf sign to look for. So basically, when the PS6 launches in November of next year, because that's when it's going to launch. Spoiler alert, that's when the PS6 is coming out, just saying. So, unless there's some kind of weird catastrophic thing that happens, which is highly unlikely, PS6 is now November of next year. So, when this console launches, when a PlayStation console launches, with or without Xbox, I mean, with Xbox it's more epic, but without Xbox it's just whatever. I mean, it still ushers in the next generation of gaming. So when the PlayStation 6 launches, this begins the next generation of gaming. Regardless of whether you know that or not, well, now you do. So PlayStation 6 launches. When PlayStation launches, Unreal Engine also launches officially. So it actually launches a little bit earlier. Like the dev kits, the dev SDKs for UE6 is available now to developers, but officially for the public to be aware of UE6, PS6 must come. So with the coming of PlayStation 6, Unreal Engine 6 also will arrive. So just be aware of that, because remember, PS1 equals UE. PS2 equals UE2. PS3 equals UE3. PS4 equals UE4. PS5 equals UE5. PS6 equals UE6. This is the partnership between Sony and Epic Games that secretly rides behind the scene without the gamers even being aware of. All game developers know this secret. So, when there is a new PlayStation, there is a new generation of Unreal Engine. This is how you track Unreal Engine. This is the reason why when we were getting... That's why we talk about overlap in generations. So, because there's a lag time. Because a developer will start a game on Unreal Engine 4... and it was originally intended for the PS4, but they might forward port it to the next generation console. What's an example of this? I'll just throw out one random example. Lies of P. Lies of P is an Unreal Engine 4 game. It started development on Unreal Engine 4. The developers were given the option to go to Unreal Engine 5, and they chose not to because they didn't want to have to retool and relearn all the different changes, and they didn't really care. It's like, oh, I don't care about Lumen, whatever. I don't need Nanite. So it's like, yeah, let's stick with UE4. Another example, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rebirth, and even next year's Revelation. That game is also Unreal Engine 4, which is technically meant for the last generation of consoles. So there's a lag time. Just because an engine is designed or meant to go with a newer console doesn't mean you can't take the older engine and develop a game for that. I mean, this is very common. So it's like, I can guarantee right now that there are games that are in development, actively in development as we speak, that are being developed on Unreal Engine 5 for the PlayStation 5, and they will possibly be upported to PS6, and they will stay on Unreal Engine 5. Alternatively, there are similar games that are being developed on UE5 for PS6, and the developer is considering moving to UE6, or at least seeing how the game performs and does all of its things with the latest version of Unreal Engine 5, which is basically a big preview to UE6. So this is another interesting thing to be aware of. So it's like, if you know what the current PlayStation generation is, you also kind of know what the current Unreal Engine is. This is a very strange phenomenon that exists in the gaming industry. It just turns out that that's how it is. It's weird, but that's how it is. So you can use PlayStation to track Unreal Engine. or you can track Unreal Engine to track PlayStation if you haven't had a console in like forever. But that's why I'm saying, like, the Gandalf symbol from the Two Towers is look to the launch of the PlayStation 6 in November of next year, because that will be the dawn of the new generation of gaming. This is what forces the industry to move forward, because up until now, we've been existing in this weird stagnation state, and then AI, you pile AI on top of that, and now it's like everyone looks toward AI. It's like someone put on the ring and Sauron, everyone's looking at AI, and no one's looking at the games anymore. They're all distracted by AI. So you get all this weird stagnation, or this weird reliance on AI to basically do everything for you, like from a development standpoint. It's weird. And then you're more of like in a supervisory role, as opposed to actively doing the work manually or in the traditional sense. So anyway, as far as the DDR5 thing goes, again, look to the launch of the PlayStation 6 in November of next year to understand if it looks as though things are going to become good, meaning prices are going to be stable and they're going to start falling, or if things are just going to continue the way they are, or if we're just going to end up in this period where, and this is probably the most likely option, which is what I really hope that it doesn't end up happening, but the most likely outcome of all of this is that it becomes a new normal where hardware, RAM, everything, CPUs, GPUs, everything is just like significantly more expensive than it was previously. And like significantly more expensive. I'm not just talking, oh, GPUs are like $100 more. No, I'm talking like $500 more for the same class of graphics card that you are normally buying. So meaning if you budget for a $500 graphics card, now you have to budget for a $1,000 graphics card to get the next generation equivalent of your old graphics card. So that's basically where we're headed, and that's probably the most likely outcome. I really don't want that to be the outcome, because I don't like the idea of, like, if an RTX 5090 is like $3,000, if the average moving sales price of a 5090 over its lifespan is $3,000, then that means the 6090 will be more like $4,500 to $5,000, for like with a launch price of like $399 or $3,999, like $4,000 starting MSRP for like a Founders Edition 6090. So imagine what like Astrals and AIABs and all that stuff will cost. So that's why I really don't want that to be the outcome, because that just causes that'll have a trickle down effect where everything under that will have a much higher price floor, and just kind of like compounds the effect for everyone involved. It's just not good. Okay, I think that pretty much covers it for what were we gonna do? Oh, I guess let's use some examples. Let's just use some examples here. Um, hmm. Yeah, we'll just use some examples here. I want to look at some examples. So, one of the laptops that launched this month is known as the Ultimate Developer Laptop, and that is the Framework Laptop 13 Pro. It is meant to compete against the Apple MacBook Pro. It also can go up against enterprise laptops because the build quality on this is supposed to compare to those. So let's try to look at how the pricing of electronics have changed in like about a year's time period. So Like, let's say I'm in the market for, like, let's say I'm going back to school. I need a new laptop for school because the laptop that I've been using for the last whatever amount of years is in bad shape. It might have been a hand me down from a parent or a relative or somebody, or I bought it cheap off of a friend or whatever. Like, whatever the case is, the old machine is so old. It might be like a DDR3 laptop, it might be an older DDR4 laptop. It just doesn't pull its weight anymore. So I'm in the market for a new laptop. So now what do? Let's take a look at this. So Framework Laptop 13 Pro, they have the PC Enthusiast DIY edition, or they have the pre-built edition. I don't know of any other laptop manufacturer that allows you to do a DIY style. I mean, you spec this thing and then you got to build it yourself versus like buying a pre-built. Because, we talk on this channel, we focus a lot on building custom desktop PCs. We don't normally focus on doing custom laptop builds, but Framework actually allows you to do that to an extent. So let's take a look. So they've got these pre-order options here. You can go with an Intel Core Ultra Series 3. That basically automatically means Panther Lake, which is really, really good battery life. Or the alternative is last year's AMD Ryzen AI 300 series, starting at $1,400. So the Intel one actually starts at a lower price than last year's AMD, which is very interesting, actually. I'm actually really interested to understand why that's actually lower cost than an older AMD chip. The AMD chip is still really good, though. And maybe one of the reasons is Framework probably has done a bunch of internal testing with certain apps. Like, one example I can give you where the Ryzen AI will outperform the Ultra Series 3, anything that's encryption, cryptography based workloads, or anything that uses AVX 512, because even the Ryzen mobile chips can do AVX 512 for some weird reason. All the AMD chips can do AVX 512 on Zen 5, so that's probably, other than that, I don't know why this would be more expensive than the Intel. We'll have to look at this. So Core Ultra 5 325. This is 4 P cores plus 4 LP. Is this for efficiency or for... Man, they need to label this a little bit better. This is like... I can't tell if this is 4 E cores plus 4 low, like LPE cores, or is this 4 P cores plus 4 E cores, or if this is 4 E cores plus 4 P. Like, I can't tell from this. This is weird. But this one, the Ultra X7, this is 4 P cores plus 8 E cores plus 4 LPE cores. So this ends up being a 16 thread CPU. But the core count is so all over the place. It's like 4 P cores and 8 E cores. No hyperthreading. Batch 19 ships November. So that's like $1,700. And then they've got the Core Ultra X9, which you can't even get because it's out of stock. And that one is just a more aggressive boost or a better binning of this one because it has the exact same core count, so it's kind of pointless for $100 more. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's see if we're gonna go with this one. And okay, LP Cam 2. LP Cam 2. Low power compression something memory module 2. So this one is really good because of the LP Cam 2. LP Cam 2, first of all, this basically means that this laptop supports socketable LP DDR5 or LP DDR5X. Yeah, LP DDR5X, which is way better than traditional DDR5 for a mobile platform. So the difference is LP DDR5 has way lower power, especially in sleep mode or standby or S3 or whatever the modern standby thing is. it uses it's like up to 50% less power than standard SODIMM DDR5. So automatically when I see this, I already know this laptop is going to have incredibly good battery life. And on top of the LP Cam 2 assisting with that battery life, they have the Intel Panther Lake, which is also very energy efficient. So these two things combined together, LP Cam 2 plus Panther Lake, means good battery life. Also 74 watt hour battery on a 13-inch laptop that's a pretty big battery. I think you can get up to an 80 watt hour, maybe 83 watt hour in that form factor. Like that's probably the most you can possibly do right now. So 74 watt hour, that's pretty good. But this is the problem, guys. Like normally I would be like, oh, I'd click on 64 gigs. I won't even think twice about it. But now that is $3,300 for a laptop that doesn't even have discrete graphics. Like, this is what I mean by the industry is messed up. Okay, now 4 terabyte, because we got to do $875. $4,100. $4,174. Ships November. And they tout it as a laptop built for Linux. So we would go with Linux if it's a build your own. So you don't need Windows here. You just do Linux. On top of that, my biggest complaint with Linux right now compared to Windows on a mobile platform is the lack of Hibernate when you use Secure Boot. Because I don't want to give up Secure Boot to get Hibernate. So I would have to be using Modern Standby or whatever the Linux Modern Standby sleep mode is. It's basically the equivalent to the Modern Standby on Windows. And that sips battery life. That's typically on Windows and Linux. On a normal modern laptop, you're talking about 1% of battery life, like depending on how big the battery is. It's roughly 1%, 1 to 2% of your battery capacity drains per hour. So think about that. So if you charge your laptop to 100%, you put it to sleep overnight, and you leave it unplugged, and it's in modern standby on Linux all night, and let's say it's asleep for 8 hours. That means you lost 8% of your battery life. That means when you wake the laptop up in the morning, you're at 92% battery life. That doesn't sound terrible, but the problem is what happens if you like don't use your laptop for 2 days. Like let's say you put it to sleep on Friday for the weekend, and you don't use the laptop until Monday after the weekend's over, like Monday morning. So now you're talking like, what is that? Friday evening to, that's like that's like 50, that's like 60 hours. So that'll be like 60 from 100%, you would drop to like 40% battery remaining. On Monday morning, you'd wake up the laptop and you'd be at 40% battery life. So that to me is bad. That's the only problem with Linux on a laptop, because the battery drains so much in standby. Windows has a workaround, which is what I personally use on my laptop with Windows, is I use something called suspend to hibernate. So what does that mean? That means, let's bring up Paint again. So Linux can't hibernate due to a design choice regarding the Linux implementation of Secure Boot. This is my biggest pet peeve I have with Linux right now, and why I'm like so close to switching back to Windows, is because I can't stand how the battery on my laptop overnight drains so much, like roughly 1%, 1% per hour. That means if the laptop's asleep for like 8 hours, 9 hours, assuming 100%, and honestly, I'm not always at 100% on the battery when I put the laptop to sleep at night. Sometimes I put it to sleep and it's like 79%. If I lose like 9% battery, now I wake it up and I'm starting at like 71% battery life. Like, that's super annoying. You can see how that's very, very annoying. Man, anyone who uses a Mac would straight up be laughing out loud right now listening to this, because Mac doesn't have this problem, because Mac loses like 1% battery life in like 24 hours. 24 hours. So I can give you guys an example. Framework laptop 16 with Fedora 44. Fedora 44, latest kernel. We're losing on an 80, what is it, 85 watt hour or 85 watt hour battery from 100% at time of sleep. It loses roughly one. It's roughly one. It's not quite one because this battery's really big. See, that's the problem, but it's still roughly 1%. 1% battery life per hour. Drains is a better word. So while asleep on Linux, it drains 1% per hour. This is not a problem on Windows. This is a problem on, well, it can be a problem on Windows if you don't know how to use suspend to hibernate, which is the secret technique, which I've always used for like the last, as far as I can remember, with all my laptops. So I've never had this problem. This is a new problem that is very annoying to me ever since I started using Linux on a laptop, because I tried so many times, so many different ways to get Hibernate to work. It doesn't work with Secure Boot because of a fundamental design choice that they have made for security reasons, and they're good reasons. But suffice it to say, you cannot use Hibernate on Linux with Secure Boot enabled. I don't understand why you put it to sleep instead of shutdown. Because sleep is instantaneously resume. Because when I put okay, dude, I can have like 40 plus tabs, browser tabs open. I can have 40 plus browser tabs open. I can have spreadsheets open. Email client open. I can have all this stuff just open, floating in the RAM, floating in the 96 gigabytes, 96 gigabyte of DDR5 5600 SODIMM. I can have all this stuff floating around in my 96 gigs of laptop RAM, and I can put it to sleep, and I don't have to worry about like shutting all the apps and having to reopen all the apps, because you close the laptop lid, it goes to sleep, you open the lid, it wakes up. Everything is there just as you left it. You don't have to go and open your browser and like restore previous session. You don't have to open the email. Like, I don't have to open the email client, the spreadsheets, all that stuff. I don't have to do any of that. Yeah, it's literally instant resume. I don't understand people who don't use. Honestly, I don't understand people who don't use sleep. I don't understand people who shut down their computer. Like I never shut down my computer. My desktop goes to sleep. So like this desktop, this very computer that we're streaming on, this never gets shut down. This thing goes into S3 suspend. So there are different things. What is it? SIO. It's like, okay, there's modern standby, which I forget what it's called. It's like SIOX something. So modern standby. There's S2, not used anymore. There's S3, which is like legacy, sleep, standby, which is what desktops use. And then there's S4, which is hibernate, also known as suspend to disk. Legacy sleep is known, or legacy sleep / standby is known as suspend to RAM. Suspend to disk. Now, one of the things I've been doing a lot of research on this, because I've been doing so much research on this topic because this whole lack of hibernate on Linux is like a massive, massive deal breaker. So the fact that modern UEFIs, modern BIOSes, don't use, and I'm specifically talking about laptops, modern laptops, if your laptop is less than 4 years old, or maybe even less than 5 years old, there is a good chance your laptop's motherboard BIOS does not support legacy suspend to RAM. So you can't even do suspend to RAM anymore. I have, from all the research that I've read on this topic, according to the people doing tests and things, S3 uses less power than modern standby. All new laptops that are less than 5 years old use modern standby. And this modern standby is the thing that like drains 1% of the battery per hour. Very, very annoying on x86. Now, the MacBook Pro. I'm starting to warm up to Apple, and I really don't like where this conversation is going, but I really hate what I'm about to say. Mac is really, really good for a lot of reasons that I never understood until I switched to Linux. So, in the past, I've always used Windows on a laptop, and Windows versus Mac on laptop is very similar because with Mac, it's Mac. And we're going to talk about why Mac is so special. Because the more I research this topic, the more Linux is becoming a deal breaker for me. And the fact that I'm thinking of going back to Windows on my laptop is I've started to research more about Apple. And I've started to learn more about Mac. And oh boy, the one thing that seems to be the general theme is there's a reason why people use Mac. There's a reason why developers prefer Mac. And only now, because of Linux, my eyes are being opened to the truth. Because I always assumed Windows is good, Mac is good, they're basically the same thing. But oh man, if you go to Linux and you're on a laptop, and you're so used to like super long battery life overnight because of Hibernate, oh my goodness, you are in for some massive, massive disappointment or a rude awakening going to Linux, man. Because Windows has a secret technique. Windows. Everybody seems to hate on Windows, but Windows is the grand king when it comes to the tricks. Windows got the techniques. So Windows has a secret registry technique. I don't know why Windows 11 hides this feature from all new laptops. But I've changed my registry to allow a secret technique, which is known as S3, or it's like sleep to hibernate. Sleep to hibernate. So on Windows, I never worry about the battery draining when when I close the lid and I put the thing to sleep, because it's never a problem. Because the way Windows works is you can do like, okay, it's like sleep, it's like power plan on battery. You can tell the laptop sleep after 5 minutes. You know? Sleep after 5 minutes. And then you can also tell it hibernate after 90 minutes. Or whatever you choose. You get to decide. It's Windows. It's customizable. It's the good. So, oh yeah, who would have thought Windows is the good? Windows is the winner against Linux in this battle. Because you have the secret ability to basically tell the computer to go to sleep after 5 minutes of idling. And then you can also tell it hibernate after 90 minutes of idling. So what Windows will magically do is, let's say I close the lid of my laptop. Let's say I'm going to lunch. The laptop, regardless of whether I close the lid or I walk away and leave the lid open, after 5 minutes of the laptop doing absolutely nothing, it automatically goes to sleep. It automatically goes to the 1% per hour of drain. I come back from lunch. I get right back into the laptop. Boom, instant resume. Everything's there right where I left it. Perfect. The perfection of Windows laptops. Who would have thought? But okay, let's do another example. Now I am done using the laptop for the day. So I'm not going to use it until the next day. So I walk away from it, or I close the lid. After 5 minutes, it goes to sleep. So now it's draining 1% per hour. But I don't come back to it until the following day. So there's a timer. After 90, once that timer hits 90 minutes, so technically 85 minutes later, after it entered the sleep, it automatically triggers hibernate. It'll automatically go from modern standby or S3 into hibernate, suspend to disk. So what it will do is it will automatically it'll save all the stuff, all the Chrome tabs, all the spreadsheets, all the email, everything, all the stuff that I was working on, all of it. It immediately writes it onto my SSD, saving it forever. In the event that, well, not forever, but you get what I'm saying. It basically writes it to the disk. It basically saves a snapshot of the moment it's entering the hibernate phase, the deep sleep. All that stuff gets saved into the disk, and then it goes to sleep. Not sleep, it goes into hibernate. I want to emphasize it goes into hibernate. So now it goes from 1% battery life drain per hour to 1% drain per, week or something. It's like it's losing 1% per 7 days or whatever. So it's like the batteries on laptops will still drain a tiny bit while in hibernate. But now we're talking it's a non-issue. You know what I'm saying? So literally I could go away from the laptop for a whole week. I come back and I can turn on the laptop. It wakes up from hibernate. It loads the stuff, the snapshot of all the things as they were, and it'll take longer than sleep. It'll roughly take like 15 to 25, 30 seconds, whatever, depending on how much stuff was written to disk, based off of how much things that were stored in the memory initially. That'll determine like how long it takes to recover, but typically it doesn't take that long on a modern laptop since it's all SSD, it's all NAND flash anyway. So the resume time is a little bit slower. It's not instantaneous resume, but now I don't worry about, oh, my battery's gonna drain while the laptop's asleep. That's not an issue on Windows because of the sleep to hibernate capability. This is something that you cannot do reliably on Linux. There are people that have tried to like hack it to get it to work. Obviously, you can disable secure boot to get it to work, but I'm not gonna like throw away, like, why would I have to give up secure boot on Linux to get Hibernate working when I don't have to do that on Windows? So like, why do I have to compromise on Linux, but I don't have to compromise on Windows? You know, you see what I'm saying? Like, to me, that's bad. That's just inferior user experience. That's inferior functionality, objectively speaking. You cannot argue against that and try to say, oh, Linux is better because no. If you're giving up secure boot to get one thing that works, Hibernate, when it just straight up works on Windows with secure boot enabled, like, that clearly means Windows is better in that scenario. So there's no arguing against that. So that's the biggest thing right now that is making me like want to go back to Windows because of this limitation with Linux. Now, Mac is amazing. That's like the short of it. So Mac is so good that this whole rant about like, oh, I can't use Hibernate on Linux. Man, Mac users are just straight up like, bruh, these people struggling on Linux, man, bruh, the Mac people, we don't have this problem. This is like some, I don't know what type of problem this is. Like, this is some kind of joke. Like, what is this nonsense? Mac is so good because of ARM and Mac silicon design. Apple's silicon using ARM is so good that it loses 1% in sleep per, no, it's like 0.5. 0.5% loses 0.5% battery in 24 hours. 24 hours. Depending on how old your battery, because if your battery is not new, you know, it's going to be more than 0.5. It's going to be like 1%. But we're talking 1% per 24 hours of sleep. So you could put a MacBook to sleep for 24 hours and it'll have lost 1% of its battery life. 1% of its battery life. Dude, I can't believe no one talks about this stuff. No one talks about this. They're like, oh, I'm going to review a laptop. Oh, the laptop. Oh, it performs, I get like 60 frames per second in some whatever game. Like, who cares, dude? Like, no one cares how good your laptop performs in gaming. No one cares. Like, if you want to play games, play on a desktop. Desktop is first class. Laptop is third class experience for gaming. Yeah, who wants to be sitting there playing like whatever game on their uncapped frame rate on a laptop, burning up their laptop at like 95 Celsius, or like, you know, whatever, burning up their battery, killing the battery life because it's like plugged into the wall, 100% charge, playing the game, fans squealing, performance mode, yeah, induce that tinnitus and hearing loss from those laptop fans. Yeah, that's a wonderful experience. Wonderful experience. Oh, grade A. Fantastic. Yeah, you keep enjoying that squealing fan noise. Yeah, that's so wonderful. So, no, Apple is the way. Like, Apple is the way. Like, for real. Like, when I found out that a MacBook loses like 1% of its battery while sleeping for 24 hours, whereas Linux and Windows, and keep in mind, Windows without Hibernate, just straight up modern standby, apples to apples. So it's like Apple modern standby, 1% per 24 hours. Windows and Linux, 1% per hour. 1% per hour. That means you're losing 24% of your battery life in 24 hours. Like, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. When I found that out, I'm like, dude, why isn't everyone using Apple? This is why Apple abandoned Intel and did their own silicon. It's clear to me now. It's clear to me. Like, Apple is so far ahead of everyone else that it's like, what is going on, guys? Like, is x86 trash? Like, what is going on here? Like, what is this? And this is coming from someone, keep in mind, I am someone who doesn't have a single Apple product. I am straight up not an Apple fan, but even I can recognize when something is objectively better, it's superior engineering at its finest. Like, this is just sad. This is sad. Linux is sad. This is so sad. No hybrid, like Windows, it's like, okay, Windows can try to like match Apple by using the hibernate technique. It's like, oh, we got our hibernate technique. We got our hibernate technique. Okay, yeah, you got 30 seconds to get back in with all your stuff from your SSD, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, Apple, instant resume. Instant resume, man. Instant resume. What is this? Windows hibernate, wake up, Windows, get everything loaded into the memory, load it out of the SSD, get it. Meanwhile, Linux is like, no, we don't do that. We don't do hibernate. Okay, what do you do? Drain your battery while you're sleeping and the laptop's doing nothing? Like, what is this? Oh my goodness. Hilarious, man. Hilarious. ARM is so good. Apple is so good. Wow. But if I'm in the market for, having said all that, now how does anyone justify this? You know, like you're gonna spend $4,000 on a build your own laptop to run Fedora or Bazzite or whatever. You know, like pick your different ice cream flavor of Linux, and so you can lose 1% battery life per hour on standby because you can't use hibernate. Oh my goodness, dude. Like, we need to switch to ARM. Come on, get rid of x86. I don't know. Like, people need to fix x86 power consumption for real. For real. Man. Who would have thought Apple was that good? And then don't even get started on like single thread performance, man. Apple's ARM architecture destroys all these x86 boys in like single thread performance on like Geekbench. It's not even close. Like, I don't understand like how Apple is this good and how everyone else is so bad that it's like I don't know, man. Like, how are they gonna justify being so bad? Like, what are they gonna do? Start singing like the Michael Jackson "Bad" song to try to justify being bad? You know, like, what is this nonsense? Come on now. Oh man, bezel. Let's just pick something. It doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to see like what would this end up. Like, what is this? Keyboard. Power adapter. Yeah, okay, you can bring your own power adapter. Okay. Yeah, 4,000. Yeah, dude, like, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. AI screwed up the entire consumer electronics market, and on top of that, Apple's still better. $4,295. for a Linux first class experience on a laptop. Everyone who has used a wait, what are you saying? Hold on, let's see what happens if I choose the AMD one. Can I save money? Like, like this is ridiculous. Apple Silicon is pound for pound leagues ahead of everyone else in terms of efficiency. See, I for the longest time, I thought it was just a bunch of marketing nonsense. Like, oh, Apple's selling a lifestyle. You know what I'm talking about? Like, Apple's all about like drinking Starbucks and pretending that you're actually working. Like, that's what I thought of Apple. Like, that was literally my opinion. My ignorant opinion of Apple and Apple users was that they are basically people who go to Starbucks, they drink Starbucks every day, and they type on email, they like reply on email or whatever. It's like, oh, we're working on it. You know, our deadline is like 3 weeks from now, and so is doing this. And that's what I thought of like Apple and people who use Apple. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did not know, like, okay, hold on a second. There's actually there's more to it than that. And you know what's the most profound thing about this discovery is that I discovered this through Linux. I never would have thought by going from Windows to Linux, not only would I develop an appreciation for Windows, strangely enough, as strange as it sounds to say that, but like I've seen from going to Linux, I know now all the things that Windows does way better than Linux, and all the shortcomings of Linux that no one ever seems to talk about when they try to sell you on switching to Linux. So like, oh, Linux, the year of the Linux desktop, the year of the Linux laptop. You know, you'll see all like tech tubers have been talking about this for like the last 2 years. And it's like, I finally decided to make the switch this year, and dude, it is not as great as people say. Yes, it has some good things, but you're giving up a lot of stuff. We're gonna get into like the limitations of Linux in a little bit, because there's a lot to unpack there. But to your point on Apple, I never would have thought by switching from Windows to Linux, I would discover how good Windows actually is. And on top of that, I would also discover like how good Mac is, which I never even intended to even look at Mac, if that makes sense. Like, that's the most profound thing, is like, I discovered how good Apple is from going from Windows. Can you imagine? You go from Windows to Linux and you learn how good Mac is, which is literally nothing to do with what that switch entails. Now you know. Now I know why Apple laptops sell. Now I know why Apple laptops sell. We're going to list a lot of the shortcomings of Linux now. So if you're a Linux fanboy, be prepared, because this is going to be a lot of objection handling coming your way. Okay, let's talk about all the bad things about Linux, because I feel like if you search videos online about Linux, all you see are like all the good things. Like, oh, go away from Windows, or I switched to Linux. So it's like, oh, Linux is so good, and never going back to Windows. Okay, let's talk now. Now here comes the reality. Here comes the reality. The reality that no one talks about. The negatives of using Linux. Wait, what am I doing here? Oh, okay. I have discovered a lot of limitations. Okay. The bad things about Linux. And it doesn't even matter what flavor of Linux. All of them are affected. All of them are affected equally. It doesn't matter. I've tested Fedora. I've tested Ubuntu. I've tested OpenSUSE. They all have the same problems. All right, number one, the biggest problem, no Hibernate, which I just talked about. If you're on a desktop, this doesn't affect you. This is a non-issue if you're on desktop Linux. But if you're on a laptop like me, bruh, this is like priority number one. Like, this is the biggest problem. No Hibernate with secure boot on Linux. This is a limitation of all flavors of Linux because this is a kernel limitation. Okay. Now, number 2. This is a really weird one that I discovered very quickly into using the Framework Laptop 16. So, audio, for some reason, and I don't really understand why this is, it's like there's a lack of high quality audio. Like, for some reason, audio playback on Linux is inferior to Windows. And I can literally prove this with the Framework Laptop 16. Because I can take the Framework Laptop 16 and the Framework Laptop 16. Keep in mind, this is a laptop that is designed to be a Linux first class experience. This is a laptop made for Linux. The speakers, it's like 2 tweeter, 2 woofer. The speakers on the Framework Laptop 16 sound muffled on Linux. The clarity of the audio is not that good. It's so bad that Framework themselves, the engineers at Framework, have a UEFI custom EQ for the speakers. Specifically, if you want to run Linux, they tell you go into the BIOS and change and enable the Linux EQ settings for the sound system. Why are they doing? At first I thought, why are they doing this? I enabled that, but I immediately went back and changed it back to the default setting, which is labeled as Windows for that laptop. And the reason why I did that is because the problem with their EQ is that for some reason, like, their custom EQ makes the voice play, like vocals, sound way too tinny. The speakers just become way too high-pitched, whiny, tinny sounding with no bass, and it's just terrible. So I go back to the default one. Default one sounds better. It sounds more balanced. The audio is more flat. The EQ is more normal. But it just doesn't sound clear, and it doesn't sound very loud. So that's the problem with using the Linux audio. Now, I go and I boot Windows on the same laptop, so same exact hardware, and automatically the audio from those laptop speakers immediately sounds way better, and it sounds like kind of how you expect typical laptop speakers on a 16-inch laptop to sound. It's like average quality. It's not great, it's not terrible, but on Linux it's terrible. It's like below average. So how did we go from below average audio quality on Linux, on a laptop meant for Linux, to average quality audio on Windows on the exact same laptop? Someone's got some explaining to do from Framework on that, because I don't know. Like, the audio quality just doesn't seem that good. So, on Linux, lack of high quality audio. Like, I don't know. Like, there's no, like, Dolby, there's no DTSX, there's none of that stuff on Linux as far as I know. Windows masks the sound with DSP. Well, I don't know, but Windows sounds better. I'm just saying, look, audio quality. All right, another thing. Here's the other thing. Here's the other weird thing that I only found out literally like yesterday. So, okay, this is the one that I really don't understand. So, for some reason, like, streaming services, I'm just going to prefix this, some, I don't know if it's all of them, but some streaming services, and the example I can give you guys, Prime Video from Amazon, if you try to play if you try to play Prime Instant Video or Prime Video through Amazon, through the browser, whether it's the Opera, like a Chromium-based browser, or Firefox, or whatever, it doesn't allow you to play back in UHD. Won't allow 4K stream like playback. 4K playback on Linux. I don't understand. This is like why is this a thing? Like, why is this a thing? What is this? Like, why is this a thing on Linux, but it's not a thing on Windows and Mac? Huh? Like, what? First of all, the audio playback is worse. And then now the video playback is worse? Huh? Like, what happened? Like, what's going on? Like, this is something, like, I figured this out. I discovered this yesterday, and I was like, huh? Why is it not 4K? Like, what's going on here? Like, why is this a thing? And there was like some random little pop-up thing in the browser trying to tell me something, but I clicked it away so fast I didn't know what it said, but I was like, oh, I assume it's telling me something. Oh, you can't do. So I'm like, really? Like, this is a terrible limitation. For real. Like, what are these ridiculous limitations, you know? And then the other, I guess, obviously, like game support, i.e. anti-cheat software, etc. Like, that would be another one if you're a gamer. Like, that's another one that people have talked about that. So this one you hear mentioned if you look up like random people talking about Linux, but you never hear of these three things. This one doesn't affect desktop users, but these two affect Linux users. So I don't get that, man. Like, those are probably the biggest limitations that are on the top of my head. I mean, there's a couple of other ones, but those are kind of like minor things that I'm not gonna complain about those because I don't. Depending on who you are, those might not be bad. But this is just straight up bad. Like, all four of these things are objectively terrible things. These are bad limitations of Linux. So, Mac doesn't have this problem. Windows doesn't have this problem. For that reason, I'm thinking, man, I don't know. Like, everyone saying Linux is like so good, Windows is so bad. Man, those people are a bunch of nonsense. They have no idea what they're talking about, or they, I don't know what they do. Like, what do? They use like their LG smart TV to like watch, like, stream videos off of Amazon or whatever. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe that's a lifestyle difference. I don't know. Like, it's weird. So they just don't like stream. They just don't stream videos from like Amazon or Hulu or whatever on their Linux laptop, I guess. It's like why aren't more people complaining about this? Why aren't more people complaining about this? I don't get that. DRM'd and they deliberately block 4K on Linux with the Why did they need to block it on Linux though? Like, how is it any different from like blocking it on the other platforms? I don't understand that. Most Linux users pirate the videos. Most Linux users pirate the videos? Wait, Linux users do this? Is this like a what's the reason behind, like, Linux is all about like open source and whatever. But you know, the weird thing is when I first installed Fedora, that was like the first Linux rant that I had was I installed Fedora and there's like nothing. It's like there's nothing. AV1 is like barely there. You're stuck using H.264 if you want to encode stuff using Kdenlive because you can't use DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve doesn't work like out of the box without a whole bunch of like custom tweaks and watching like 4 hours worth of videos to figure out how to get it working for your specific distro. You know, like so it's like Kdenlive, and it's like you don't have HEVC out of the box. It's just like so annoying, man. Like, it was so annoying. Like, I'm missing all these things, and it's like, oh, well, because they believe in, like, open source and stuff. Well, okay, you're telling me that some of the people, I'm not saying everybody, but some of the people who are all into open source are gonna, like, pirate content. How is that a good look? Like, that is gonna continue to detract from the Linux ecosystem, like, growing. Like, to me, that just, it's not good. Like, that's not a good look, man. If they're gonna say, like, open source this or whatever, and they're gonna, like, pirate somebody's work, like, no, that doesn't sit right with me. I don't know, man. This is ridiculous. Why isn't this a thing though? Like, codec support is distro dependent. This is the reason why Ubuntu, I think, is objectively better than Fedora and a lot of these other distros, because Ubuntu recognizes, like, there's a difference between an idealistic standard and a practical standard. And I do think that Ubuntu Canonical has a way more practical view on a lot of these things regarding, like, closed source versus open source. And I tend to agree with that more than the other one, because of my, like, what is this, guys? Like, why are we having these problems? Why are we having these problems? Like, what is this? Can't it just work? You know, like, this is 2026. Like, I didn't go to Linux so I can go back and live like it's 2004. Huh? Like, I didn't switch to Linux to go back in time 20 years or so when it comes to quality of life on a, like, using a computer, you know. Like, it's weird. It's strange. Windows heavily relies on proprietary DSP. I don't know about that, because I don't have any of that stuff installed on that framework laptop, and everything just sounded better. So it's like, with just basic Windows, just straight up, like, basic Windows, with nothing installed. Because keep in mind, like, framework doesn't have, like, they don't package anything with Windows, because they're not, like, they don't expect most of their users to use Windows. And I just threw, like, Windows on there to see what would happen, and lo and behold, man, all of a sudden the audio just sounds way better. I don't know, and it's like literally the physical same speakers on the exact same laptop. And I'm thinking, okay, so this laptop actually has okay speakers. It's actually a Linux problem. It's not a hardware problem, it's a Linux problem. Without digital makeup. Yeah, but how do I know what Windows is doing though? Like I just said, there's nothing installed. All I did was install Windows, the bare minimum, and it sounds better. And we're talking like Microsoft audio drivers from 2006. I didn't install any audio drivers. It's literally just basic 2006 Microsoft drivers. These are like Windows XP era audio drivers, and they sound way better than whatever Fedora is using. So I don't know, and that's without any of this digital makeup. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I guess I could go and look for those Realtek or whatever the speakers are. I can go and find the Realtek and install those on Windows and see how that sounds. But I don't know about that. It just seems like some things are just tuned better on an operating system. Who would have thought? Like, if you're the market share leader, your stuff is probably gonna behave better from a utilitarian standpoint, because you have a lot more people giving you feedback on user experience. I don't know. Like, the other problem with Linux, this is more of like this isn't really a real bad thing, but like the lack of, so all the Linux distros they're all based off of the Linux kernel. So they all share the Linux kernel. So they're unified in that regard. But I think one of the biggest, it's not, I won't say it's like a negative thing. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. It can be a good and a bad thing. Because there are so many distros, the lack of consolidation, the lack of what's the word? Like cohesion. I mean, well, it's not really, because they're all based off of the Linux kernel at the end of the day, but because there's so many distros and they all have their kind of like individual quirks that make them unique from each other, there can be a degree of analysis paralysis for someone who's thinking of going to Linux, just because they could ask, like, they could get a different answer from, they could ask 5 different Linux users and end up with like at least 3, if not 4 or 5 different responses. Like, if someone asked me, they want to go to Linux, and they'd ask me like, what distro should they use, I would literally tell them Ubuntu. I'd immediately tell them Ubuntu. Forget everything else and just go to Ubuntu. Who cares what anyone else tells you? Go to Ubuntu. I would immediately push them to Ubuntu, regardless of anything else. I don't need to hear how they're going to use their computer. I don't care if it's for gaming. Even if it's for gaming, I'm going to tell them to go to Ubuntu. So that's what I mean by no matter, like, and whoever's watching, you probably disagree with me. You might like, no, you should tell them to go to Baslite. No, tell them to go to SteamOS. No, I would tell them to go to Ubuntu. That's my answer. That's what I mean when I say, like, you can ask 5 different Linux users and get 5 different answers. That's my answer. So someone else might have a different answer. Someone might say Baslite. Someone else might say Fedora. Someone might say Nobara. You know, like, so, no, you're going to get all these different answers depending on who you ask. My answer is Ubuntu. So if I had to do the whole thing over again, I'd have gone with Ubuntu from the start, not Fedora. But I do have my laptop in a good state now. Like, my workflow on Fedora is fine. It's good. With all these limitations that I have to deal with. But, I don't know. It's not perfect. The bottom line is Linux is not perfect. Regardless of what people tell you, it's not perfect. Windows is not perfect either. I think everybody knows that. Mac is also not perfect. But I learned so much about Mac that I was not expecting to know in the last month or two that I've been using Linux, that it's crazy. Yeah, it's just what it is it's probably a lack of like audio codec stuff in the Linux kernel. That's what it is. Because like I just said, I can load the default 2006 Microsoft drivers for Windows, and it sounds better than like 2026 Fedora 44 latest kernel. Just saying. So, and that doesn't mean that the laptop speakers are automatically like so good. I mean, they can't even touch Apple. Even with Windows, the framework speakers cannot touch Apple. Like, Apple is in a whole nother league in terms of sound quality. So, I don't know. All right, guys. Well, that's probably going to be it for this episode of Tech Thursdays. Definitely different vibe than last week. I think last week was probably one of the better episodes in terms of the amount of different things that we kind of talked about. I didn't expect to rant for like an hour on this, but that's my feedback on using Linux. I'm not saying you shouldn't try it if you're considering trying Linux. Just be aware that it is not perfect, especially if you want to install it on a laptop. If you're on a desktop, ignore this first one. And I guess if you have good headphones or whatever, you can probably ignore this one. But there's still some drawbacks, you know? So it's not like it's a perfect thing. You won't switch off Windows because you don't have the time. I mean, it's worth trying. If you have an old computer, like an old computer that doesn't have official support for Windows 11 because of the TPM thing or whatever, I mean, it doesn't hurt to at least like try it so you're aware of how Linux functions, so you are aware of what other options there are besides Windows. I would recommend that any tech enthusiast, or anyone who tries to consider themselves a tech enthusiast, should at least try Linux. I'm not saying they need to go and abandon Windows and 100% go all in on Linux. No, I'm not saying that at all. Like the whole time that I've been using Linux on my laptop, I still use this computer, and this computer is exclusively Windows 11. You know, so I've got the Framework desktop. The Framework desktop is also running Linux. It's a different flavor of Linux, where on the laptop I run Fedora 44. On the Framework desktop, I'm running Ubuntu 26.04 LTS. So relatively modern kernel for Ubuntu standards, but yeah, it's basically the same experience as Fedora. It's not that different. I mean, the major difference that I can tell with Ubuntu is there's I don't have to do as much tweaking compared to Fedora. Like Fedora, I had to customize so many things about the UI to get it to how I like it. Ubuntu, kind of the default one. I didn't like the taskbar being on the left side. That's kind of Ubuntu's default. I moved that to the bottom like Windows, and I shrunk the size of it a little bit. So minimal changes on Ubuntu compared to Fedora. Like Fedora didn't even have like the snapping and rearranging windows the way Windows works, but Ubuntu does already have all of that built in out of the box. So that's what I mean when I say practicality. I feel like Ubuntu is far more practical, and they don't expect the user to have to go and like customize a bunch of things out of the box. Like the user can still do that if they want to, but I just think that the default stuff you start with on Ubuntu, it comes with a better starting kit, I'll say, if that makes sense, versus Fedora. Fedora is more like bare bones minimum, and if you like that thing, then that's totally fine. But I'm someone who would rather not have to go and install a bunch of extensions and things to get things working the way I like them to look. So I think Ubuntu does a better job out of the box. And then Ubuntu's installation, like you install Ubuntu, you can click to install the third-party thing. So like all the free whatever repositories, that you get them enabled from the time of installation. You don't have to add that manually like you have to do in Fedora. So Ubuntu is just easier. It's just less steps. And that's the reason why I would feel more confident in blanket statement recommending Ubuntu to anyone considering Linux, or at least trying Linux. Like I tried Bazite for like 5 minutes and didn't like it. Well, I didn't hate Bazite. The main reason why I didn't want to use Bazite is because Bazite is an immutable distro, and that's like the whole other thing too. Like that's another hour worth discussion right there. But yeah, I tried various different ones. I tried Bazite. I think I tried Mint, and it's like if I'm going to install Mint, like why? Like Mint is basically Ubuntu without canonical stuff. So it's like why even bother with this? Might as well just go with Debian. Like I don't see the advantage that Mint has over like Debian. So OpenSUSE was the one that everyone first people were recommending me Kali Linux. I immediately turned that down. But then people came back and like, oh no, try OpenSUSE. OpenSUSE is straight up the best distro. Like hands down. OpenSUSE, tumbleweed, rolling distro, the best in the business. Fantastic. So I was like, okay, let's try OpenSUSE. And then it's like, okay, they're telling me like if you have an NVIDIA GPU, get OpenSUSE. That's the one to get. If you have an NVIDIA, like if you have NVIDIA, you got to get OpenSUSE. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to install this on a laptop, or I'm going to install this on an old laptop that has NVIDIA graphics in it. So like, yeah, then definitely get OpenSUSE. I installed OpenSUSE. It was okay. It's fine. What I found interesting about OpenSUSE was, first of all, OpenSUSE doesn't do a live USB, so you can't really like trial it ahead of time. You have to commit to it. And then OpenSUSE also, what was the other thing I wanted to say about it? Oh, it tries to default you when you're installing it to KDE. Like it tries to do KDE Plasma. Like it recommends KDE Plasma, but I chose GNOME instead, and it's fine. It's fine. So people will tell me OpenSUSE, man, you'll love it. It's so good. And I kind of want to try OpenSUSE with a newer platform because I got it on a really old laptop. So this will be the last thing for this stream, but man, we're going way, way over. Yeah, we're way over. I didn't expect to keep on talking about Linux, but you know, Linux is Linux. So it's like I've got basically 3 Linux machines right now. Hold up. Do I need to keep this stuff here? Let's just delete all of this. Delete all of this. So I'm going to explain to you guys my Linux environment. So my Linux platforms. So these are my Linux platforms. So you guys are aware of what I use or what I have been testing and playing around with. So my most commonly used Linux machine is Framework Laptop 16. This is the laptop that I was ranting about earlier because there's no Hibernate on Linux. So this is Fedora. So let's do the specs because everyone always this is a tech enthusiast focused channel, so we gotta write the specs. So CPU, Ryzen AI 9 HX37. Yeah, my favorite APU of all time. This is why this is my daily driver because it has my favorite APU with Radeon 890M. And then we have discrete GPU, Radeon 7700S. This is kind of like a 4060. It's really interesting because this is kind of like a 8060S on Strix Halo, but this is a discrete mobile GPU. Similar to a 7600 XT or a 7600 desktop GPU. RDNA 3. So that's that. And then RAM, I've got 96 gigabytes, DDR5, 5600 SODIMM. So that's like 2x 48 right there. So yeah, this is worth like $1,600 right now if I wanted to sell this RAM. So that's insane. And then we've got SSD 1, 4 terabyte SN7000 and SSD 2, 2 terabyte SN71. This is 2230. This is 2280. So this is that small SSD. If you saw the unboxing video and the assembly video, you basically have already seen like everything that I've just typed up here. So that's the Framework laptop. This is running Fedora 44. Fedora 44. This is the most commonly used. I use this every day for reference. Every single day. This is like my primary laptop. Outside of work, I still use a Windows ThinkPad, which we did a whole video on the channel. That's like the work laptop. That's like a Windows 11 laptop. That's a ThinkPad P16S Gen 4. But, okay, so the other one, Framework Desktop. And this one is running Ubuntu 2604 LTS. And this one is Ryzen AI Max 395 Plus with Radeon 8060. Let's just put this down here. iGPU Radeon 8060S. One of the most powerful integrated GPUs I've ever used. This GPU, this integrated graphics is about as powerful as that discrete 7700S, which is crazy. It's like, wow, this laptop discrete card is about the same power as the Framework Desktop. Framework Desktop iGPU actually has more memory bandwidth than the Radeon 7060S or 7700S. And then RAM on this is 128 GB of LPDDR5X at 8,000 megatransfers. Very fast. This has the same amount of memory bandwidth as my Threadripper desktop. That's insane. SSD 1, 4 terabyte SN7100, 2280 SSD 2, 4 terabyte SN7100 2280. SN7100 is one of the most energy efficient SSDs I've ever seen at idle. This is one of Framework's secret sauce as to why their laptops get very good battery life. But this is a desktop, this is a mini PC. And then my third and final platform is a ThinkPad P51 running OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. This is probably the most different of all the platforms. This one is using an Intel i7 7700HQ. It has a GPU, which is a, oh dear, Quadro M, oh boy, ThinkPad P51 Quadro M2200. That's the GPU. Quadro M. So as soon as I told the Linux experts, I said, hey, I've got a laptop, I want to install Linux, and it has an NVIDIA Quadro M2200. They all recommended me OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, or OpenSUSE, whatever the non-rolling distro was, but I chose rolling distro for whatever reason. So, and then the RAM is 32 GB 4x8 DDR4 2400 DDR4 speeds. So fantastic. 4 sticks of RAM in a laptop. Yeah, 4 sticks of DDR4 2200 mega transfers. And then SSD 1, I think, is like a 512 GB. SSD 2 is a 512 GB. I don't remember what the it's like some kind of Samsung, like whatever OEM thing. I don't even know what it is. It's like MTZ some numbers, whatever. It's like some kind of OEM that Lenovo gets from Samsung, some off-brand Samsung thing for both of them, whatever. All right, and anyway, so that's what's in there. So this is what I use, guys, to test Linux as a foundational platform. Fedora on the modern laptop, Ubuntu on the mini PC Strix Halo, and OpenSUSE on the legacy 10-year-old or whatever, maybe 9, when was this? 2017. 9 years old laptop. 9 years old laptop. You see why they recommend that Linux distro, since GTX 1000 series isn't supported on most Linux distros. This is Maxwell, just so you know. This is Maxwell GPU. So this is equivalent to GTX 900 series. GTX 900 series. This is kind of like a GTX 950 or maybe a 750 Ti or something. I can't remember. It's like a Maxwell. The M stands for Maxwell on this Quadro. So it is a 900 series. It needs drivers for a 900 series NVIDIA. And they recommended me OpenSUSE because OpenSUSE has a very, very easy preset number to choose from depending on your NVIDIA generation. So that's why I went with OpenSUSE for that one. But yeah, all three of them work great by Linux standards. So these are the Linux platforms. So we have like a 9-year-old computer, a modern computer, like a 9-year-old laptop, and the only thing that doesn't work on this is the fingerprint reader. I can't get the fingerprint reader working with OpenSUSE. Like this has a fingerprint reader, this has a fingerprint reader. The fingerprint reader in this works totally fine out of the box. This one, I can't find the driver with OpenSUSE. It doesn't work. I tried for like 2 hours one afternoon and just gave up. So I can't use my fingerprint reader on my old ThinkPad, but that's basically the only thing I can't use. Everything else works. NVIDIA, Optimus works fantastic using OpenSUSE's drivers for the NVIDIA Quadro. So gaming on this, I mean, obviously it's so old, you can't really play any like modern games. But, you know, like I tested with a couple of old games. I tested like Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy, 13 on like Steam and it worked. You know, it ran fine on this old machine, so it works. But anyway, guys, that's my experience with Linux because I know people have been curious to know my full opinion and my full thoughts on using as of now, since I've been using Linux now basically since I got the framework stuff. I've been all in on Linux. So I feel like I have a very good opinion, a fully formed opinion of the good things and the bad things about it. Anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for this episode of Tech Thursdays. If you're new to the channel, and you like these kind of weird discussions, I feel like this episode, I don't want to. I feel like this episode was kind of ranty, and I'll try not to do that again. I don't want these videos to feel like it's overly negative in nature or overly critical of certain things. Last week's episode was, the vibe of it was completely different. So if you want to check out last week's episode of Tech Thursdays, I think you're going to find that one is really good. I think that was one of my favorite episodes that I've done in a while. But anyway, we talk about all things related to tech and computer hardware, as you guys can tell if you were listening for the last 5 minutes. But other than that, if you like this sort of content, do get subscribed to the channel if you want to keep in touch with the content. And then, as always, I do weekend live streams featuring certain games. It kind of depends on what's popular or what I feel like playing during the month. So we've been doing like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on the Switch 2 edition recently. I don't know what I'm going to stream this weekend. It's probably not going to be that. It'll probably be something else. I haven't really figured it out yet. But anyway, if you want to tune into that, hit the bell icon when you get notified when I go live. Sometimes we do tech builds, like I build desktop computers on streams. So if you want to catch those streams are kind of rare. Definitely hit the bell icon to get notified when I go live. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys on the next episode of Tech Thursdays. Until then, take care, and I will see you then. Thanks.